by the wall, alhamdulillah, good. But mostly I see youngsters, inshallah. So if all of you can move forward, inshallah, fill in the gaps. When Sahaba radiallahu anhum used to sit in the majlis of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, it is said that if a sheet of cloth, if a chadar was put on their heads, there won't be a single loop. Ek bhi bal nahi hota tha chadar mein. There won't be a single loop. So unless we need the support of the wall, it's fine, no problem. But otherwise, inshallah, we try to move forward. The more etiquettes we sit with, the more adab we sit with, the posture that we are sitting it represents ihtiyaj, that we are in need of this talk, we are in need of this bayan. The more, inshallah, the bayan will be effective for us. And it is mentioned when a person sits with the intention of acting upon whatever he is listening and conveying it to others, automatically Allah makes him memorize those things. And when the time comes to act upon these things, Allah reminds him. Okay? So this should be our intention, that we are in need of this conversation, of this bayan. We are here to learn, and we should present it by a posture, and likewise with the intention to act upon it also and convey it to others, inshallah. And we'll begin the program with the recitation of the Quran. So I'll request Hafiz Mustafa to please come forward.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم إن زلزلة الساعة شيء عظيم. يوم ترونها تذهل كل مرضعة عما أرضعت وتضع كل ذات حمل حملها وترى الناس سكارى وما هم بسكارى ولكن عذاب الله شديد. ومن الناس من يجادل في الله بغير علم ويتبع كل شيطان مريد. كتب عليه أنه من تولاه فأنه يضله ويهديه إلى عذاب السعير. يا أيها الناس إن كنتم في ريب من البعث فإنا خلقناكم من تراب ثم من نطفة ثم من علقة ثم من مضغة مخلقة وغير مخلقة لنبين لكم ونقر في الأرحام ما نشاء إلى أجل مسمى ثم نخرجكم طفلا ثم لتبلغوا أشدكم ومنكم من يتوفى ومنكم من يرد إلى أرذل العمر لكي لا يعلم من بعد علم شيئا. وترى الأرض هامدة فإذا أنزلنا عليها الماء اهتزت وربت وأنبتت من كل زوج بهيج. ذلك بأن الله هو الحق وأنه يحيي الموتى وأنه على كل شيء قدير. صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah khair, Hafiz Mustafa. Inshallah, we'll begin with the bayan, but before the bayan, the numbers on which you'll be texting your questions, inshallah, flyers will be given out at the end of the bayan. The sisters will text their questions to the Masjid texting number 33733. 33733. They will also get the flyers, but I'm just letting them know beforehand. And they would write sisters' question, and inshallah the alimats will receive them and will answer to them. There will be a separate number for the brothers. They won't be texting on this texting number. Inshallah the numbers will be given out once the bayan comes to an end. And Maulana Abdullah Islam, he was born and raised in Jersey City in New Jersey, and he studied for approximately 7 years to study the Islamic sciences. The first few years were in Louisiana, the next few years were to the famous Darul Uloom in Buffalo, upstate New York, and the last 2 years of Hadith he studied in Karachi, Jamia bin Noria, the famous institution in Karachi, Pakistan. Once he returned back, alhamdulillah, he has been serving. Currently, he's the Khatib for Darul Khair Masjid in Jersey City. He voluntarily does the khidmat there, alhamdulillah, directs the programs. He's an instructor in Darul Quran wa Sunnah in Queens, and likewise an instructor in Darul Hidayah in Teaneck, New Jersey also. So alhamdulillah, he accepted our request. We are, alhamdulillah, happy on this. So I humbly request him, inshallah, to come here and start and begin with the program. Once again, the topic is Al-Mahdi, the awaited one, radiyallahu an, the time he will be sent in, the signs of the Day of Judgment, and what are the remaining ahwal of him.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين قل إنما العلم عند الله وإنما أنا نذير مبين صدق الله العظيم. We start with the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most gracious, the most merciful. La ilaha illahu, there's no power nor glory except with Allah, there's no God, no one to be worshipped, no one who has power to do anything, no one who deserves to be worshipped except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by Himself. He will ask, and He asks, as we know in the Quran, He asks, لِمَنِ الْمُلْكُ الْيَوْمِ, to whom belongs the kingdom? And no one has the audacity to respond, no one has the power to respond. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself will respond, لِلَّهِ الْوَاحِدِ الْقَهَّارِ. Of course, Allah is the only one who has the kingdom. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one who is actually the owner of any single thing. He is the creator of time and space. He's the creator of men and jinns. He's the creator of all creations, everything that we know of. And the things we don't know are even more amazing, and yet Allah is their creator. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent prophets and messengers to mankind to extract them and stop them and prohibit them specifically from their own evil. I don't take pictures, I was going to mention that quickly. So out of respect, please don't take pictures or any video recording. The audio recording is permissible. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for your patience. So, as we were saying, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our creator, and He has sent prophets and messengers to stop people from their own evils and to guide them towards success in this world and the hereafter. Success in this world and the hereafter. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's choicest salutations and blessings be on all the Anbiya and Mursaleen, all the prophets and messengers, and specifically on the final Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, who was sent rahmatan lil alameen as an example of mercy for all of creation, not just human beings. And he was a guide a source of guidance toward as-sirat al-mustaqim. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessings and salutations be on all the prophets and messengers and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and those who follow the sunnah and the way of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam until the day of judgment. I wanted to sort of fix our intention before we start. Whenever we do something, we sort of get what we put in, right? So this world we live in, this universe, is a universe of action. What you do, you basically get back from it. And there will be two people who attend the same event, and their experiences might differ, even though it's the same event. And that's based on their background and what they're looking for. So whenever we come attend an event, we should ask ourselves, why am I here? Right? Why am I here? Not necessarily like the atheists who wonder because they have no actual guidance, but ask yourself, why am I actually sitting here? Take a second. The answer should first and foremost be for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we're all here to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we're not here for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake, then it's not necessarily beneficial. So we should make sure that's our intention. There may be times that you benefit, that you are amazed by something, and sometimes you are not amazed by something, right? It's lackluster. But if you did it for the sake of Allah, you get rewarded regardless, right? So why waste your time? Fix your intention. Number two, when we hear things that are good, we try to apply it in our lives, right? Every day we try to be better than we were yesterday. And we want to be better tomorrow than we are today. So we're trying to become the best people, and we're trying to fit the characteristic, kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas, that you're the best of people. But how are you the best of people? The best of people are those people who are there for everyone else. They're not there for themselves, right? So we should understand that we're not here for ourselves per se. Yes, sure, we want to make sure we don't go toward hellfire. We want to save ourselves and our family from the hellfire. But a true believer is actually there for not just himself. He's there for his neighbors. He's there for his co-workers. He's there for others. A child is there to help his parents. A parent is there to help his children. A brother's there to help his sister, his brothers, so on and so forth. So we should realize that we are here for others. And how so? Not so we can take benefit from others, so we can be a source of benefit to others. And how can we be a source of benefit? Amr bil ma'roof, nahyan lil munkar, and yu'minuna billah, or iman billah. We have to order the good no matter what. It's not just, oh, I know it's good. I know it's good, then it has to permeate into my actions, so I do good. But then if other people are missing the good that I'm doing, I shouldn't be selfish. I caught Fajr. Alhamdulillah, I'm in the protection of Allah, but my roommate missed it. Too bad for him. That's not a true believer, right? So we should always be in gatherings trying to better ourselves, make ourselves better, and then basically make that a part of us so other people can benefit. So people will like being around us. Obviously, that's not the topic of today, but I want to make sure we're sitting here for the right reasons. We're not wasting our time. There are many people right now wasting their time watching inanimate objects, just staring at them and wasting their time. And they get so happy, but they don't become better by any measure. So alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you with being in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with praying Isha Salah together, and to try to learn about some of the signs of the Day of Judgment, right? So this brings me to my third point. And I feel bad, I should be sitting down. You should be sitting up here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you, especially the ulama that are here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide all of you and bless you and preserve you. So we're here to learn about Imam Mahdi to a degree, to learn about the signs of the Day of Judgment. We have to remember, there was a Sahabi who asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when is the Day of Judgment? When is the Day of Judgment? And many of you already know the answer in general, that no one knows the exact Day of Judgment except who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, correct? But the response given was amazing. Obviously, everything Rasulullah sallallahu does is amazing, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Amazing, like you can write volumes on 2 words that come out of his blessed mouth. So he asked, what have you prepared for it? The Sahabi is asking, when is the Day of Judgment? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is asking, what did you prepare for it? right? There's a line of poetry, كل امرئ مصبح في أهله والموت أدنى من شراك نعله, right? That every person might wake up in the morning, maybe surrounded by his family, not realizing his own death is closer to him than his shoelaces, right? So now, once we know when the day of judgment will be, what are we going to do? What are we going to do with that knowledge? Right? I know if the day of judgment is at that day, how many people do? Let's say somebody knows there's an exam coming, right? So let's say there's an exam coming maybe next Tuesday. When the students know the exam is coming next Tuesday, there'll still be a percentage of people that will play games the night before. True or false? For those who actually know students, right? We know that there'll be some that are studying even before the time they knew the exam will be there, right? Or even before they knew the subject, they just cram, they study after every class, they take notes, and then when the teacher tells them the exam will be on this topic, that topic, on this chapter and that chapter, alhamdulillah, it's even better for them, right? And then you have like an average group, and they study a little bit, and they cram a little bit, and then whatever. And then you have this other group that even though they know that the exam is going to be on these chapters, they slack. And that's the nature of people. So if all of us already knew when the day of judgment will occur, we'll still have our slackers. And slackers are basically people who don't necessarily use their time wisely, right? Excuse my verbiage or vernacular. So there'll always be that group of people. That's the human race, right? Alhamdulillah. So may Allah SWT make us amongst the best of the human race and save us from being amongst the worst. So Rasulullah ﷺ is training the Sahaba with things that are beneficial. What have you prepared for the day of judgment? Right? What have you prepared for the day of judgment? There was a Sahabi who was asked about his actions, and he says, I haven't prepared much, except that I love Allah and His Messenger. And the response given was, Al-mar'u ma'a man ahabba. And when the Sahaba heard this, they were so happy. It was like Eid for them. They heard, Al-mar'u ma'a man ahabba, meaning a person will be with those whom he loves. Meaning when on the day of judgment. So the Sahaba heard that this person didn't prepare a lot of things, right? He wasn't praying tahajjud maybe every single night, or he didn't do tahajjud maybe consistently. Maybe he didn't free a lot of servants. Maybe he didn't do this. Maybe he didn't have a lot of money to give in sadaqah. But his heart was at the right place. He had a good starting point. And that starting point is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So that's the starting point. And then at least you know that you're taking the right steps, right? You're going down the right path. Once you know who Allah and His Messenger are, and that is your metric, that's your true north, then at least you can start traveling in the right direction. So now we go and we ask ourselves, maybe there is some benefit in learning about the signs of the Day of Judgment. So we'll go over the signs of the Day of Judgment, but know this. What many of us are looking for, especially when we hear about Imam Mahdi, rahmatullah alayh, right? Or radiyallahu anhu, sorry. We're basically trying to find someone to save us. Unfortunately, not all of you, but there are some people who think, once Imam Mahdi, rahmatullah alayh, comes, I'll be good. Meaning, I'll be taken care of. Because many people love shedding their responsibilities. Not taking care of the responsibilities, but putting it on others, right? And so when we hear about Imam Mahdi, we think, okay, we're going to be in a khilafah. There's going to be no music, no haram. Everything's going to be easy. But there will be the same fajr as there is tomorrow, inshallah, right? So what's stopping us from praying fajr in the masjid tomorrow versus when Imam Mahdi will be here? What's stopping us from doing good deeds right now versus that time? So this is something to think about. It's rhetorical. So with that, inshallah, we'll begin. But know this, that putting your hopes in something in the future is futile to a degree. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given each and every one of you an opportunity right now. From right now, you have an opportunity to change the future. You have an opportunity from right now to change the future. And that is by you perpetually doing better. Perpetually doing better. Every day you do something better and you make it a part of you. You own it. The next day you own something new until you are like the Sahaba, inshallah. You have the khasa'il, the ways and mannerisms of the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now another thing, people mention that history repeats itself, correct? So a lot of times we'll notice that the things that we come across amongst the signs of the Day of Judgment, they might happen more than once. Some of these smaller signs might happen more than once. Does that make sense? We want to make sure we're not amongst the people who are wrong, right? When it comes to the signs of the Day of Judgment. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings about our environment based on our own actions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings about our environmental factors, things that are happening to us based on what we have done ourselves. ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس. ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر. Right? You see that turmoil has become apparent on land and sea because of what the hands of people have done. And as we go over the alamat as-sa'a, the signs of the Day of Judgment, you'll notice that what? That you'll notice that people have caused these things that are the signs of the Day of Judgment. People have done, they have directly caused some of the signs, some of the minor signs for the Day of Judgment. With that, inshallah, we'll begin with the signs of Day of Judgment, inshallah, and then we'll conclude. We'll transition to Imam Mahdi rahmatullahi alayhi, but after that we'll cover very briefly the coming of Isa alayhi salatu or the emergence of Dajjal, Isa alayhi salatu, and then very briefly we'll end with the Day of Judgment. So amongst the signs of the Day of Judgment, there are minor signs and major signs of the Day of Judgment. Obviously, the first sign of the Day of Judgment was what? For the ummahs before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself was a sign of the coming of the Day of Judgment. When there was a group that was actually Christian, became Muslim afterwards, amongst the Sahaba, they basically were traveling, and as they were traveling, the sea tossed and turned, and they basically lost their way until they ended up on an island. And on the island, basically, they had an instance where it is reported that they had, one of the people had a conversation with a beast that you couldn't tell the front from the back. They were just hairy. And then this beast basically took this group to its master. And so the master started asking the people that were there, right, about certain signs that have come about. Then he asked about the unlettered prophet. Has the unlettered prophet emerged? And he basically advised that you should be with him. So as soon as he came back and the news reached Medina and the group of people came to Medina, they became Muslim, the Sahaba were informed and that this was Dajjal, right? He was shackled up, and basically the first sign, one of the first signs that Dajjal took of his time of release was the Prophet of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent, and the time of the Day of Judgment were like this close, We look at it as what, 1400 plus years, right? 1441 years, right? 1440 years since what? Since the Hijrah, the migration. So we look at that as a long time, but it's actually like the blink of an eye. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came, he advised the people, and he told the people, and he scared the people, the Sahaba, of Dajjal. And he mentioned that there was not any ummah, any prophet who came to his nation, except that he warned his people about Dajjal. And there were some times that Rasulullah ﷺ warned the people, right, warned the Sahaba, to the extent that they thought Dajjal might be around the corner, hiding behind some trees. That's how close he is, that he's just about to attack. And other times it seemed as if it wasn't that big of a deal, right? It wasn't that focused on. So the Sahaba one day were really scared, and they asked Rasulullah ﷺ, and Rasulullah ﷺ said, if Dajjal emerges, then during my time, I will basically protect you from him, right? By the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he basically, Rasulullah was more worried about other things for the Sahaba at that point in time. He was worried about other things for the Sahaba at that point in time. But he did advise that, he said, I will tell you something that the other prophets have not mentioned about Dajjal, that Dajjal has one eye, meaning one functional eye, and the other one is like a swollen grape. And on his forehead is written, Kafir, Kafara. Whether you're literate or illiterate, if you're a believer, you can read it. You can read it and you can recognize it. So anyway, the Sahaba calmed down a little bit. So now we look at this minor signs of the Day of Judgment. Amongst the Sahaba, Hudayfa radiallahu ta'ala anhu was one of the Sahaba who had asked about the signs of the Day of Judgment and what's going to happen next, what's going to happen next, so on and so forth, while other Sahaba would ask about different aspects of the religion. So Hudayfa radiallahu ta'ala anhu would be informed by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who himself wouldn't know about the ghaib, what's absent, except through the permission of Allah. Jibreel would inform him about such and such, then he would tell the Sahaba. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu was asked, he asked Hudayfa radiallahu ta'ala anhu one day about the great fitna, the great test. Fitna, right, is a great test, a trial, something that is hard on everybody. And Hudayfa radiallahu ta'ala anhu asked him, what does it really concern you? Why does it really concern you? Because between you and this great trial is a huge door, a closed door, a huge door, meaning it's blocked. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu wasn't necessarily just worried about himself. He was a man of the ummah, a man who was worried about the nation of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he asked about this door. He said, will this door be opened? The door of fitna, will it be opened or will it be broken? Right? Will it be opened or broken? And Hudayfa radiallahu ta'ala responded, no, it'll be broken. Actually, it will be broken. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala said something amazing. He said, then it cannot be closed again. It can never be closed again. So the tabi'een asked afterwards, what was this door? And who knows what this door was? Right? Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala himself was the door standing between the ummah and fitna. And he was killed. And that when he was killed, that means the door was broken. Subhanallah. But just because the door was broken, there are so many fitan coming. It seems like one is worse than the next, right? So in the time of Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu, there were many people who were trying to assassinate Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And surrounding Uthman radiallahu ta'ala, again, a lot of this actually you've covered with Maulana Kashif, I believe. So nevertheless, Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he was right? He was in the right, and those who were attacking him, trying to hurt him, were in the wrong. But nevertheless, he told the Sahaba, and specifically Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, I do not want one drop of blood to be shed for me. And what he was doing is he was also acting like a door that's stopping another fitna. And that fitna was Muslims killing Muslims. And as soon as Uthman radiallahu ta'ala was executed, killed, assassinated by Muslims, then from that opened the door of Muslims fighting against Muslims. And of course Uthman was correct, was accurate, was right. And then basically many fitan happened after that. Obviously you can refer to Maulana Kashif, Damat Barakatuh, and you can attend his lectures here on Fajr, on Sundays I believe, to get more details about this. So going forward, وَمِنْهَا يَأْتِي عَلَى النَّاسِ زَمَانٌ الصَّابِرُ عَلَى دِينِ كَالْقَابِضِ عَلَى الْجَمْرِ. That toward the Day of Judgment, as time surpasses, the person who holds on to their faith, to their religion, will be somebody who's holding on to a burning coal, a hot coal, C-O-A-L, right, in their hand. So how hard is it to hold on to that? So it'll seem to people that holding on to the religion is that difficult, when it actually isn't. The religion, the more you practice it, the more your life actually becomes easier. The more you practice the religion, the more your life becomes easier, and you actually save money. You actually save money on this, right? There are people who actually pay $50 to $100, maybe less, to get on a piece of equipment and they climb up these stairs that goes nowhere. And they walk on these, I forget what they're called, treadmills. And they basically don't even reach the wall behind the treadmill. But they're spending all this money. But you see the brothers who get up at Fajr and they walk to the masjid. They go walk to the masjid for Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. Right? What are they getting? Right? Low intensity workouts. Right? Low intensity workouts that's free of charge. And what happens, it's so healthy that it's good. And that you go to the doctor when you get older and the doctor says, you should walk more. But they should be saying you should go to Fajr more, right? But they say you should walk more. So the religion makes it easier on you. But the environment is such, is so polluted, it twists everything. Just like Dajjal, the name Dajjal is a trick. So everything seems twisted to the point that right looks like it's wrong and wrong looks like it's right. Does that make sense? Right looks like it's wrong and wrong looks like it's right. Na'udhu billah. And so when you're in that environment, you don't know which way is up, you don't know which way is down, and you get confused. There are many new Muslims. I'm from Jersey City, so we have a lot of new Muslims, alhamdulillah. It's not because, astaghfirullah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives guidance to whoever He wills, but we have a lot of new Muslims, and they get inundated with asking, what should we do? What should we follow? What should we do? Because they're coming from that environment where wrong is right and right is wrong, and now they're just being inundated and they want to try everything. They want to do everything that is good. But they're also leaving the environment where they know alcohol is bad. Been there, done that. I don't know if some of you understand that. So they've already been through that experience, and now they're saying, that doesn't attract me. They've seen, either they've went through or they've seen so much wrong in their lives, they're sick of it. And if they were to see some of us when we were kids, like saying ooh ah to these things in the dunya, materialist things, they would laugh at us like, what are you doing? What are you doing? So subhanAllah, the wisdom that they have. Khair inshallah. So this dunya, the environment that you're in twists right and wrong, intentionally, to the point that there were Khulafa Rashideen, one of them would be holding his tongue and crying. And then he would just lament, and he would basically advise and admonish himself. He would say, Ya dunya gharri ghairi. Oh dunya, trick somebody else. It was said of Ali radiallahu anhu that he was running away from the dunya and the dunya was running after him. So another thing that you get by practicing the religion, is that the dunya runs towards you. Just doesn't walk towards you, the dunya runs towards you. So the nature of this world is if you pursue the dunya, it runs away. You have to try to run faster, and it tries to run faster. So the name of the game is not to chase the dunya. Dunya, by the way, means this world. Sorry for using Arabic terms. The dunya meaning this world, this universe, this earth, the materialistic thing that we pursue, trivial pursuits. We chase them and they run away from us. But the trick is not to chase them, to run towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to run towards the religion, and then the dunya says, oh, you don't want me? Let me try harder to come to you. Let me try harder, and let me chase you. And the people, once they realize what they have in this deen, in this religion, they don't want the dunya anymore. They don't want the dunya anymore at all. To the point it's like this. It's like if you had tea or coffee, right? It's sweet, right? To a certain degree it's sweet. And then let's say you had like a chocolate bar of some sort. Once you have the chocolate bar, right? And you try that tea or coffee again, how sweet is that tea or coffee? It's not sweet. So now imagine Jannah, paradise. They say that if you got a whiff, just a small whiff of the scent of paradise, just a whiff, the scent of paradise, anything you smelled in this world would smell disgusting. In comparison, right? In comparison. So you smell like the best musk, right? Best oud, best whatever scent you have, pure, and you're like, oh, this is disgusting. Because I smelled Jannah. I smelled paradise. So it's actually a form of mercy that we don't see our Jannah yet. So getting back to the signs of the Day of Judgment, the Sahaba, the ones who truly understood, they didn't pursue the dunya, but the dunya pursued them. Okay, so one of them is that toward the end of times, a person who is holding on to his religion, it'll feel like he's holding on to coal. And toward the end of times, there will be people who worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they'll be severely ignorant. And you'll have reciters of the Quran that are sinners. Na'udhu billah. So you can tell how much fitna must have happened, that the people who recite the Quran is not entering their hearts. And it says, لا تقوم حتى يتباهى الناس في المساجد. People will be showing off the masajid. Look at our masjid. Look how beautiful it is. Look how big it is. Look how amazing it is. When actually, what should people look for in masajid? They should look for the people inside the masajid, not the brick and mortar. They should look at the content of the masajid. In the time of the tabi'in, you could find one scholar sitting against one pillar, and around him people learning. Another scholar teaching something else leaning against another pillar. So you go to the masajid and you're learning so much. In the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which was absolutely, positively the best of all times on this earth, was a time when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was alive. In that time, you entered the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What was the roof made of? What was the ground made of? What are we sitting on now? We're sitting on clothing, cloth, thick carpeting. What is that? That's clothing. That's not from the ground, this material. The Sahaba were sitting on what? Dirt, mud. And the roofs weren't solid. You'd have like some structure, some twigs or branches, and then you put these date palm leaves on top. So when it rains, the water goes through. It's porous. And it pours through. And the proof of this, when Rasulullah was discussing the Laylatul Qadr, what happened? It was mentioned that he was prostrating, and what the signs of the ground were on him, meaning it was muddy, it was wet ground. So that was the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the best masjid besides Makkah al-Mukarramah on this earth. And it was in that situation. So people will do what? They'll get amazed by looking around. Alhamdulillah, it's a blessing to actually have a masjid. That's number one, the best places on this earth are the masajid. I'm not knocking masajid. I'm not talking bad about masajid. We have to take care of our masajid. We have to donate to our masajid. And basically we invite to our masajid. But think about it. What do we do when we see a masjid? We see how amazing it is. We take pictures maybe. Look at this masjid, look at that masjid. Selfie, na'uzubillah, look at this and look at that. That's what we get amazed by. Just what's like vain. But we don't say, oh, I saw this scholar of hadith. Right? He has this many chains and links to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imagine I learned from him. I heard a narration from him. Or I learned from this faqih, a scholar of fiqh and jurisprudence, and I understood the meaning behind this. I understood the meaning. For example, very famous hadith of Aisha Abdullah ta'ala anha concerning the tahajjud prayer. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would pray tahajjud, 8 rak'ahs, whether it's inside or outside Ramadan. Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi puts this hadith under the chapter of tahajjud. So this is the understanding of hadith versus looking at it verbatim. So the people who look at it verbatim will say, oh, 8 rak'ahs. But the people who have understanding of the religion say the author himself puts the hadith under tahajjud. Under tahajjud. So that's called fiqh. There's so much more concerning fiqh. So now you say, this masjid has a faqih. I can learn from Maulana Kashif, mashallah, when it comes to fiqh, tafsir, tarikh, hadith, so on and so forth. So we should be amazed by that. But unfortunately, as time progresses, we get amazed by what? Things that we see with our eyes. To the point that I've seen some people who will come to a restaurant, they have this amazing food, they start taking pictures of this food, put it up on Snapchat or Instagram, and they won't even take a bite. Or maybe they take a bite and they leave most of it. And there's so many people who are hungry overseas, all because it's global, right? And they see this food and they probably they're poor people who might have seen this food saying, subhanallah. They wish they had a morsel to feed their families. And what are people doing? Eating with their eyes. So you see how we are nowadays. So there's a lot to be worked on, right? So I was getting to this, that as we discuss the signs of the Day of Judgment, we want to make sure we don't become one of the signs, right? We don't become one of the signs. When I started gaining weight, right, at one point I couldn't gain weight at all. And then after a certain point in time, I started gaining weight. I was happy till I became overweight, which is not good. But I was happy, astaghfirullah azim, until I realized I might be one of the signs of the Day of Judgment. Because you will see people who are bigger, right, toward the Day of Judgment. So you'll see basically a lot of wealth and so on and so forth. So we have to realize we shouldn't become part of the signs of the Day of Judgment. We shouldn't become part of the people who, people say, oh look, did you see him? Dajjal is coming soon. Because of him, na'udhu billah. So please be careful, alright, inshallah. Khair, inshallah. وَمِنْ أَشْرَاطِ السَّاعَةِ الْفُحْشِ وَالتَّفَحُّشِ. Toward the Day of Judgment, people will be immodest. Immodesty. What does immodesty mean? It's not just that you covered your hair if you're a sister. Modesty is a way of life. Modesty is a way of life, right? So people come by, and before, na'udhu billah, the scholars were complaining about sisters wearing clothes too tight. And now I'm complaining about brothers wearing clothes too tight. Like that's too much information everywhere. Na'udhu billah. So why, basically, it's becomes, remember, shaitan, one of the first things shaitan did, right, when he got our parents out of paradise, right, out of Jannah, our parents lost their clothing. And they're so embarrassed. And shaitan loves the fact that there's immodesty. And you notice, subhanAllah, sometimes you wonder, why do scholars wear so many layers of clothing, right? They cover like this area. Because it's extra layers of modesty for a guy, for a man. Do you understand? And that creates intimacy. Aisha Abdullah ta'ala anha, when Rasulullah would come by, she would put on more clothing. Because that was intimacy with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Khair, we can discuss that another time. You can ask Mawlana Kashif more about that. So we have to understand that we shouldn't, things are getting twisted nowadays. We're not understanding what intimacy is. We don't understand what modesty is. We don't understand how to treat our family members. We don't realize how we should protect our sisters, protect the honor of our mothers, protect the honor of our daughters, actually even protect our brothers, our fathers, and our sons. Basically, we have to bring that back. So toward the Day of Judgment, there'll be so much immodesty, and people will become used to it like it's nothing. And then people will try to be more immoral and more immodest, and there'll be competitions. Subhanallah, may Allah save us from that. So that's another sign. وَقَطِيعَةُ الرَّحِمِ. So people will do what? They'll value maybe their spouses more than their own parents. And children will be what? Children will be disrespectful to their parents, but cool with their homies. They'll be disrespectful to their parents. My friends are the best. And your friend will leave you at an instant. You didn't share your game with him. They're upset at you. But family can't leave you. No matter how much they want to leave you, blood is thicker than water, right? Blood is blood. We have to realize in Islam, family is very important. To the point that if you're crossing the bridge of As-Sirat, that's the bridge on the Day of Judgment that goes over Jahannam, the hellfire, it's thinner than a blade, right? Sharper than a blade, thinner than hair, right? If you're crossing over that, what's going to walk with you? One of the things that can help you as you're crossing, because in that world there'll be different dimension, right? Our actions will take a physical form. So one of the things that can help us is Silatul Rahim. Basically, joining blood kinship. The way you acted with your parents, the way you treated your mother, the way you treated your father, meaning in good terms, your children, your brother, your sister, to the point that if you fed them while you were hungry, you treated them better than yourselves, then on that day, as the kalalib, there will be hooks coming out of Jahannam as a person's walking over that bridge. They're kalalib, right? Hooks coming out, trying to pull people into Jahannam. Now, wali'ayadu billah, may Allah save us. So as these are trying to come out, this will be a defender against that, based on our actions. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to truly value our blood ties, our relatives. Know that they're valuable. And just briefly on that topic, since it is a sign, what does it mean to take care of our families? How should we treat our family members? So it's not bitawasi. Tawasi means even Steven. How should we treat our family members? It's not even Steven. My brother basically got me something for Eid, so I'm like, I have to give him something for Eid. So then we have this even Steven concept, right? That's not how it works. For example, this person, he cooks the best biryani, so I cook some biryani for him. I make sure I feed him when I have some food, so I get some, something back, some kickbacks, right? That's not how it works. The way Silatul Rahim works is when they're bad to you, when they're hurting you, when they didn't share with you your fair share of the inheritance, when they dishonored you, they constantly make fun of you, you still smile and you're kind to them. That's when you turn the other cheek. With your family, you are kind to them when they're mean to you. And this is very difficult, And this is very difficult. Right? Remember, with our parents, let me start with the parents briefly. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us about our parents? وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا إِمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ عِندَكَ الْكِبَرَ أَحَدُهُمَا أَوْ كِلَاهُمَا فَلَا تَقُل لَّهُمَا أُفٍّ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained that no one ascribes partners with Allah. That's an order, a command from Allah Rabbul Izzah, our master. And he says immediately after, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. And with your parents, you have to apply ihsan. What is ihsan? What is ihsan to your parents? Ihsan means you treat them better than they have treated you. And here is remember, ihsan, Allah is telling us to do ihsan with our parents. And ihsan to our parents means we treat our parents better than they have treated us. And here is the irony. Remember, we have to treat them better. You have to treat him better than he has treated you. But the irony is we can never, ever treat our parents better than they've treated us. It's psychological. The word ihsan here is basically to tell you psychologically, push yourself further and be nicer to your parents. But the truth is we can't even pay back one kick of the stomach. When we were just fetus or feti, whatever the proper name is, in our mother's wombs. We can't pay back our fathers. We don't know how much they stress just to put food on our tables. And some of you might come from an immigrant family. We have no idea what they went through in that generation. I don't. I was born and raised here. But they came over here not speaking the language properly maybe, or having a slight accent, and to work in that. If you were a doctor somewhere else, you come and you work at something else maybe. You're not given the title you deserve, just to put food on the plate in the houses. And then you say, I don't like this. Or half it's not eaten, thrown away. So we have to treat them better than they've treated us. And the worst thing is nowadays, from people I know around me, na'udhu billah, is mentally this thing that they're nobodies. That's even more disgusting than the food we waste. To think that our elder generation are nobodies, na'udhu billah. We stand on their shoulders if we ever get that chance, subhanallah. Because they work so hard, we're able to breathe easy. Or breathe easily. So again, toward the Day of Judgment, you'll see what? People who deserve their right are not going to get it. You'll see this recurring theme. Parents deserve their haqq, and they don't get it. Right? Leaders, umara, people who work hard in the community deserve their right, they don't get it. Scholars who deserve their right and they won't get it. Okay, going forward. وَتَخْوِينُ الْأَمِينُ وَإْتِمَانُ الْخَائِنِ. Toward the Day of Judgment, people who are trustworthy will be treated as if they're thieves. As if they are not trustworthy at all. But the people who cheat the most, people say, let's go and let's give our money with them. Subhanallah. In 2008, right, and 7, there's a huge financial crisis, right? And it seemed like the economy was tanking, right? What happened to this money? Did it burn? What happened to the money? Millions of dollars disappeared? What does that mean? They got lost in a garbage truck? So who are we trusting? Right? You ask the financial analysts, and maybe they haven't studied high enough or done forensics high enough to realize that money didn't disappear. We trusted people who weren't trustworthy. So toward the Day of Judgment, you'll see that the people who are untrustworthy, who are not trustworthy, will be trusted to such a large degree. But the people who are trustworthy, people will say, nope, don't go near him. Don't go near them. This is another sign. وَمِنْ اقْتِرَابِ السَّاعِ انْتِفَاخُ الْأَهْلَ وَيُرَى الْهِلَالَ قَبَلَ. Sorry, we'll proceed forward. وَمِنْ اقْتِرَابِ السَّاعِ كَثْرَةُ الْقَطَرِ أي المطر وقلة النبات. Toward the day of judgment, you'll see a lot of rain. A lot of rain, but very few crops. So some of these signs were so strange, right? Obviously the Sahaba believed in them, but they seemed so weird. If you have all this rain, why won't there be so much produce? Correct? And recently we're discovering there are companies that are creating, right? They're creating under the guise of helping famine, stopping world hunger. They're creating seeds that you plant once and they themselves don't produce seeds. So basically you plant them into the ground, basically you have this huge harvest. But then this harvest has no seeds to further plant. I know I'm not a farmer. I wish I understood that better. Many of you might not be around farms, but usually when you grow crops, you save a portion of the harvest and you reap the seeds, save them for the next year, and you plant them again. So if a crop produces no seeds, where are you going to go to get seeds? Back to the company. So that means higher profit margins for the companies. So no matter how much it'll rain, these crops will not produce seeds. So you're basically baking poverty into the economy, into the agricultural economy. But that's just my observation. This basically, remember, these signs are very loose. We don't know what it specifically will appear as. But there will be a lot of rain toward the day of judgment, and there will be very little produce. وَكَثَّةُ الْقُرَّاءِ أَيْ الْعِبَادِ وَقِلَّةُ الْفُقَهَاءِ. You'll have a lot of people who have amazing recitation. And it's not bad to have amazing recitation. It's actually part of your deen. وَمَا بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَ تَرْكِهِ إِلَّا رِيَاضَةٌ بِفَكِّهِ, right? وَمَا بَيْنَهُ Imam Jazri says that tajweed. First of all, we have to realize when you recite Quran, you have to recite Quran with tajweed. There's no ikhtilaf about this. There's no dispute about this. You have to recite the Quran properly. And all it takes to recite Quran properly is just practice and exercise. But you will notice toward the day of judgment, people will do what? There will be a lot of reciters of the Quran. Qurra. And another sign of the day of judgment, you have a lot of people who recite, but they will be sinners. And you'll have what in this narration? وَقِلَّةُ الْفُقَهَاءِ. You'll have very few people who will understand the words coming out of their own mouths. Very few people who understand the very words coming out of their mouths. There was a story in the time of the Sahaba ajma'in, in the time of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, where the kibar al-Sahaba, there were a lot of Sahaba who were from the time of Badr, who participated in Badr, their Bay'atul Ridwan, so on and so forth. And they saw a youngster. They saw a youngster by the name of Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, who Umar radiallahu ta'ala would keep near him. He would keep this youngster near him. So they asked, we're older, why is this youngster around? Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu didn't say anything. Right? He didn't say anything. And then another day he asked some of the people there, yes, what do you say about Surah Nasr? إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا فَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ وَاسْتَغْفِرْهِ إِنَّهُ كَانَ تَوَّابًا. What do you say about this surah? And the answer, for the majority, the answer given was that this is telling of the coming of the Fath Makkah, the victory over Makkah. And basically you'll see multitudes of people entering Islam. Remember, before Fath Makkah, actually before Sulhatul Hudaybiyah, before that time, people would become Muslim in like small groups, maybe 1, 2, maybe 4, 5, maybe 7. You'd be amazed if 10 became Muslim at the same time, right? In the Meccan period, it took so many years till you just barely hit 40 Sahaba. And then even in the Medina period, it still was very slow, trickles. And so when you would hear that so many Sahaba, so many people became Muslim at the same time, you're amazed. You love it because we see with our eyes, right? For the most part. Very few see with their iman, with their faith. So what happens is, the Sahaba said basically the coming of, this was telling about the advent of the Fath Makkah, many people become Muslim, we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so on and so forth. So then Umar radiallahu ta'ala asked Abdullah bin Abbas, and how many of you know this story? Most of you know this, right? Raise your hands. MashaAllah. So he asked this youngster, MashaAllah, radiallahu anhu, what do you say about this? And he said what? He says, this is telling of the coming of the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is telling us, foretelling us about the passing of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So subhanallah, we hear the same verses, but there's a deeper meaning. There's a deeper meaning. When this verse was revealed, right, if I'm not mistaken, the Sahaba were so happy. Rasulullah was reciting these verses, and the Sahaba were rejoicing, and you saw Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu crying his eyes out, metaphorically speaking. Crying his eyes out when other people were happy. So you'll see toward the Day of Judgment, people will recite amazing, but what does it mean? You go to Quran.com or you go Google search it, that's not going to tell you what it truly means. Is it going to tell you what it truly means? If we look at all of hadith as an explanation of the Quran, everything we truly need is summarized in the Quran, but it's so compressed that we can't really understand it. Right? For example, prayer, the command for prayer, it's in the Quran. Then to understand how we're supposed to pray, where do we go? How many rak'at in Fajr? How many rak'at in Dhuhr? How many rak'at in Asr? Look for in the Quran, you find in the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the hadith Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is what? Is the interpreter of the Quran. So anyway, so toward the Day of Judgment, you'll have Qurra, but you have very few fuqaha, people who understand fiqh. And just to gauge this, the moment I mention Hanafis, ask yourself, how do you feel? If you feel, oh, Shafi'is, if you feel, oh, right? Mawalik, how do you feel? Right? Hanabila, how do you feel? If you feel like there's something wrong, you feel dislike, you are part of this crew. Where if you heard an amazing recitation, and it's permissible, right, to hear amazing recitation. We used to do this as well. We'd hear this masjid, mashallah, it's an amazing reciter. We go there and we listen. And obviously the Quran has a medicinal effect. But it's not wrong to hear amazing recitations. But when we hear about understanding the Quran and we get turned off by it, there's something wrong with our faith. When we get turned off by scholars, but we get impressed by music, there's something wrong with our faith. When we get impressed by how beautiful the Quran was recited, but we didn't understand it, we didn't try to understand it, we didn't go to a scholar and say, explain this to us, there's something wrong with our faith. And guess, that's not the biggest tragedy. The tragedy from the signs of the Day of Judgment is that this will be normal. It's a problem when it becomes normalized. It's a problem when ignorance is normalized. There was a person I know from another city. I asked him, why don't you wear a thobe? Why don't you, cover your head? And he basically said, people might think I'm a scholar. Subhanallah, they get scared of being called or replicating or becoming like a scholar. Because look at the population. What's cool is something else. Subhanallah, time of the Sahaba, if some of us, who here prayed tahajjud today? Raise your hand. Right? So, alhamdulillah, some of you are being humble. But basically, when I ask this question in the Masajid, some don't raise their hand out of humility, but others feel like I'm showing off. Right? But in Medina, everybody paid tahajjud. In Medina to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, in the time of the Sahaba, everybody prayed tahajjud. It was bad if you didn't pray tahajjud. So in our environment nowadays, the question shouldn't be who prayed tahajjud. The question should be who was crying in tahajjud. So we up our level of faith. Everybody's praying, but it's so hard for me to cry. You look at people in Ramadan, and the first night of Taraweeh, very few people might be crying. Second, third, fourth, and slowly the Quran starts washing our heart, washing our heart, washing our heart. And by like the 27th, you hear like the first row, they're hidden crying. We're not supposed to cry out loud to show off, obviously. I was giving an example prior. But they're crying because it takes so much to wash off the effects of music, wash off what we see with our eyes, wash off all the injustices we do on a daily basis. So these are what? Another hadith, I'm sorry for digressing, but I think this is important. It is a saying of Rasulullah, which I'm paraphrasing, that open punishment, right? Sorry, the sins of a few people will not affect everyone until three conditions, all right? The sins of a few, obviously, whenever somebody does bad, we should stop them immediately. Al-amr bil ma'roof, order the good. Order it, right? An-nahy anil munkar, you prohibit evil, right? Wa tu'minuna billah, right? We believe in Allah. So we have to order the good and prohibit evil. But when people do sins, and they're evil people, and they're very few in number, that doesn't affect everybody until the people of khair, the people who are salih, the people who are pious, the people who are good and have the ability, the second condition, have the ability to stop the people of evil. And they don't. When people do evil, and around them are people who are good people, pious people, God-fearing people, people of taqwa who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they have the ability, they have the strength to stop the people of evil. They're not mustad'afina fil ard. They're not the weakest people on this earth. But they have the power to stop the people of evil. Number two, they're people of good. They have the power to stop the people of evil. And number three, they don't. Allah sends open punishment on everybody. بِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِي النَّاسِ, because of what the hands of people have done. To the point that the people who do evil, they become like the people who do good, who didn't prevent the people of evil, start resembling the people of evil. They start resembling the people of evil. One of the signs toward the Day of Judgment, I'll say it briefly because we have youngsters, is that there'll be people there'll be males inclined to males and females inclined to females. And it's become popularized, right? And when people ask, what do we do about this tragedy, right? Obviously, there's no children produced, there's no offspring, so obviously that's one way, right? It just ends, but then the ideology continues. But the issue isn't with that generation. The issue started when males and females without marriage weren't stopped in the streets. And it became open in America to talk about it. I'm talking about in the 1900s, right? For those of you who have grandparents who were here in that time, it wasn't okay for that type of relationship. It wasn't okay. It was wrong amongst the Christians, amongst the non-Muslim Americans. It was not okay. Even till the 50s. Even in the 50s, there were Catholics, nuns, sisters who would wrap the hands of kids who would eat with their left hand to make sure they eat with their right hand. This was Catholics back in the day. And slowly that changed, and evil, immodesty became normalized. And because people of good didn't stop them at that time, now we have these new problems nowadays. So again, these are the minor signs of the Day of Judgment. I'll jump into a longer hadith and then we'll jump into the discussion of Imam Mahdi rahmatullahi. But I want to mention another sign of the Day of Judgment. إِذَا ضُيِّعَتِ الْأَمَانَةِ, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned when trust will be wasted. And the Sahaba radiallahu anhum were amazing. The best of people after the prophets were the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. Look what they did. They understood Arabic, correct? The Sahaba understood Arabic. We understand that. And it wasn't just Arabic. It was like proper classical Quranic Arabic. It wasn't like bawlak, khidba, like none of that nowadays, slang, right? It was pure Arabic, like really pure Arabic, right? Abu Jahl probably spoke better Arabic than most of the people in this dunya right now. Maybe, right? And when they heard Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, and by the way, it's not bad to speak Arabic. Every language is beautiful, alhamdulillah. Even the dialects, right? It's beautiful to learn. To the point there was a Sahabi who at the request of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam learned another language. The language of the people of the book, Within like under a month, he learned this language. So it's good to learn languages and to learn and to basically gather knowledge. Good knowledge, no matter what language it's in. But nevertheless, the Sahaba, when they heard something from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would ask them a question. And the majority of the time, what would they respond with? Allahu wa Rasulu a'lam. Allahu wa Rasulu a'lam. Allah and His Messenger know best. Who knows best? Allah wa Rasulu. Even though they might have memorized tens of thousands of lines of Arabic poetry, their histories, right? Many of them are illiterate. They were a verbal people, oral people. They learned through oral tradition. They might have thousands and thousands of beautiful lines of poetry memorized. It's not because they were ignorant. But when Allah's Messenger asks you something, they would respond, Allah and His Messenger know best. Because they understand. What if there's some new revelation coming? To the point that Rasulullah asked them one time, what day is it? Right? Where are we? So on and so forth. And each answer was, they remained quiet until they said, Allah wa Rasul A'lam. Basically, the Sahaba were thinking maybe Rasulullah will give it a different name. Even though we know what day it is, right? What day is it, by the way? How many think it's the 24th? Raise your hand. 24th of? Rabiul Akhir, 1440 Hijriya. Right? That's today's date, right? After Maghrib becomes a new day. So, there was a city called Yathrib. What did Rasulullah change their name to? Madinatul Munawwara. Right? Or Medina. Meaning Madinatul Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Sahaba had this habit, this mannerism, that even if they think they know, they would still defer to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is how you learn. In front of your teacher, we don't say, I know everything, I know this, I know that. I mean, yes, if they ask you a question, what's 2 plus 2, what's the, a squared plus b squared equals, and you answer c squared, that's fine, right? But you don't act like you know everything more than the teacher. And the adab, the mannerisms behind how the Sahaba learned, epic, beautiful, something we're supposed to copy. Khair, inshallah. So one of this is al-ضيعت amana, when trust will be wasted. And so the Sahaba asked, hey, how will it be wasted? Meaning, what can you explain? How will it be wasted? And Rasulullah responded, and there are 2 narrations. One of them is إِذَا وُسِّدَ الْأَمْرُ إِلَى غَيْرِ أَهْلِ. Another narration, إِذَا أُسْنِدَ الْأَمْرُ إِلَى غَيْرِ أَهْلِ فَانْتَظِرِ السَّاعَةِ. When you see people who are unfit and for a certain position, but they take on that position, then wait for the day of judgment. When people who are unfit for something take on that position, wait for the day of judgment. Many people ask, they're waiting for Imam Mahdi. Many people would say, if we had Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu amongst us, we would be okay. Because why? Because they think he was a great leader. The beauty of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu was that he was a great follower. The beauty of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu was that he was a great follower. The Sahaba, the wealth is coming in from Sham, from the greater Syria. If I say Syria now, you think one area. The greater Sham, which included Lebanon, Palestine, is all known as Sham. Wealth from Sham was coming in. The wealth from Iraq was coming in. The wealth from Yemen is coming in. In the time of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And he had on clothes that were ripped. My clothes are very immaculate, mashallah. But he had clothes that were, it's a blessing from Allah. I see that. I wish I had patched clothes to show you. He had patches on his clothing. Right? He had patches on his clothing. To the point that the assassins from, I forget if it was the Roman Empire or the Persian Empire, there were 2 assassins sent to assassinate Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So they go looking for Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And obviously people are very self-centric. So they come and they basically think according to what they're used to, right? Self-centric. The world spins around me, na'uzubillah, right? Geocentric, self-centric. So they're self-centric. So they're used to their kings and their leaders. So they start looking for security guards. Not security guards, but the armed guards, right? Where's the Secret Service? Where are the people that are strapped, right? Nobody. I don't see a big gathering of men protecting anybody. So then they asked, where's the leader, your leader? He said, oh, he's in the aswaq. He's in like the markets, right? And so they go to that area. And they're looking for signs. Maybe they'll see somebody, maybe they'll see an army there. Or they'll see at least somebody dressed in like just immaculate clothing. And what they're used to is their kings, their leaders would have like golden crowns studded with emeralds and pearls and diamonds. And their clothing would be so much gold and silk and embroidery and all this other stuff and all these embellishments, right? Worth like millions or billions of dollars. Nowadays, our currency is not even based on gold. So imagine if you actually had gold, right? Sewn into your clothing, not in your pockets. Your pockets are made of gold. Not in your pockets are gold. Not just your pockets, your clothing is gold. So that's what they're looking for, right? And they see no one. They see no one like that. And so then they ask, where's your leader? So he's resting over there. He's resting on the ground. His clothes are like tattered, like a poor person. And he's sleeping on the ground outside. Outside. Anybody could attack him. And they were just shocked. Imagine the psychological effect it has on you. This is the leader that we're scared of. They were to creep and try to kill him. He's just sleeping over on the floor. Like you pass by some of these subways or whatever. And basically, subhanallah, that's how humble he is. Radiallahu anhu. So anyway, obviously they weren't able to attack him. There was a muwarrikh who mentioned, right? Hakamta fa'adalta fa'aminta fanimta, right? About Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Hakamta, you governed, fa'adalta, and you did justice. Fa'aminta, and when you did justice, Allah had given you safety, tranquility. Fa'aminta, fanimta, you're able to sleep, no Ambien, no sleep meds. You're able to sleep peacefully, governing so much of the world. So this same Sahabi, Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the Sahaba saw wealth coming in, and they sort of said what? They said, you should upgrade a little bit. I'm paraphrasing. Because the wealth is coming in, reflect it. But the Sahaba knew, they didn't have the courage to mention this to Umar radiallahu ta'ala face to face. So what did they do? They said, who should we send to Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu? They finally said, the mothers of the believers. The mothers of the believers. The men weren't brave enough to suggest this, so they sent women. Radiallahu anhunna. They sent women. Because Umar was not doing anything, obviously, to the mothers of the believers. So he sent his daughter, Hafsa radiallahu ta'ala anha, and Aisha radiallahu anha. So they suggested it to Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And as soon as Umar radiallahu ta'ala heard this, he became furious. He became furious, angry. And what did he say? He reminded them about the household of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Holy Prophet. How was the household of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Don't you remember a time when the bedding of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was doubled? Basically, it's this simple, like what we call blanket. It's basically some type of material that's filled with some padding. It's very rough. And it's just one like, almost like a very, 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 harsh duvet, almost whatever, right? Has things inside there. And this was a sheet. This was doubled for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to become his mattress. That's what he slept on. This was his mattress. So one night, our mother, radiallahu anha, doubled it. So it's already double, so it's quadrupled, right? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam slept on this, and in the morning, what did he say? He's very polite, the best of manners. إِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, right? Rasulullah had the best of manners. He never yelled. He never basically asked them, why did you do this? Why didn't you do this? He basically asked, about last night. Is there a different bedding? Very politely. So our mother responded, radiyallahu anha, she said no. So then Rasulullah asked about it. Basically, she responded saying that I doubled it. Meaning whatever it was, I doubled it again. Rasulullah said, it became difficult for me to get up for tahajjud, for qiyam. Put it back, like if basically to return it like it was in the future. So this was the bedding of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Umar is reminding the mothers of the believers. And then he said something to prove what I said, inshallah. He said that I have two companions. The first companion had a path. He was a traveler. He traveled on this path very specifically until he reached his destination. Then the second companion followed the exact same path, and Allah had blessed him with reaching the destination. I'm afraid if I don't travel the same path, I might get lost. So basically, Umar was following the very same footsteps that Abu Bakr followed, which is the footsteps of Rasulullah to go to paradise. So the key to saving this ummah isn't necessarily all this technology. If we have better masajid, people will come to the masjid. If we have this, if we have that. No. What Rasulullah did is timeless. And following his way will be basically the safety and save us from whatever we're in. And that has already been preserved in the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah. That has been already preserved in the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah to the point that any nation can follow it. You take Islam and you bring it to the nation of America, and Americans follow this, they'll be saved. You take this to where? Nigeria, and the people there will be saved. You take this to Brazil, and the people follow and they'll be saved. You take this to Antarctica, and the people there will be saved. You don't have to be a descendant of a Muslim. You don't have to think that Allah needs you. Na'udhu billah. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. And who's saying this? ربنا Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our Creator is saying, on this day, we أكملت لكم دينكم, I completed for you your religion. And I have filled it, packed it with أتممت عليكم نعمتي, my blessings. And Allah is saying He is pleased with Islam as the religion. We have no bid'at. We have nothing to add. لا يزيد ولا ينقص. Nothing to make Islam more or less. It's already perfection. It's already perfect. So my dear respected brothers and elders, toward the Day of Judgment, what will we see? People constantly regressing, thinking they're advancing. They're regressing, thinking they're advancing. This is part of the tricks of shaitan. That you'll see what? Basically, you'll see toward the Day of Judgment, beyond the trust, that the command positions of different positions will be given to people who don't deserve it. One of the signs toward the day, you notice that when it comes to leadership in Islam is not something you vie for, you fight for. Leadership is an appointment. Those who want to become a leader are automatically nullified. But nowadays you see what? People jumping at the chance of leadership. Are you a scholar? Are you this? Are you that? Do you qualify? So towards the Day of Judgment, you'll see less qualifications and more people fitting in that role. And what happens? That leads to injustice, فَضَلُّوا وَضَلُّوا, and they become misguided and they misguide others. We'll jump into Imam Mahdi toward the ends of times. So one of the first signs toward the great signs of the Day of Judgment is the coming of Imam Mahdi rahmatullah radiyallahu anhu. Imam Mahdi will be a person from the lineage of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we have to remember this as well, that what we hear about Imam Mahdi, right, and the coming of the different signs of the Day of Judgment, because they haven't happened yet, no one can say with certainty exactly what it'll appear like, or exactly who he will be. Does that make sense? But you will notice that he follows the traditions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Imam Mahdi rahmatullah alayhi, it is said that his father's name will be Abdullah, right? And will he be? He will be from the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he will do what? He will fulfill the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to the point that he will emerge at a time when there will be so many fitan, so many trials. There will be such trials that a person will be Muslim in the morning. And by the time evening comes, they will have left their religion. And some people will be Muslim in the evening. And by the time Fajr comes, morning comes, after Fajr, they would have become non-Muslim. Na'udhu billah. And this is different from the time of, in the time of Medina, on the time of Sahaba. During the time of the Sahaba, there were people from the book, right? And what they would do is, as a fitna, they would go in front of the Sahaba, and a group of them would say, I've become Muslim. But then they would say, oh, it's something about this verse. Oh, we don't believe it anymore. Just because they hoped that the Sahaba would also have doubt in their faith. That was a planned attack. And this is different from that. There will be such trials that people will ask, is Islam true? Is Islam true? Na'uzubillah. Obviously Islam is true. To the point that me growing up in the 70s and 80s, and there wasn't a Muslim community like they have, mashallah, you're very blessed. I used to wonder about Islam. A 5th grade teacher, my 5th grade teacher in public school, asked me, na'uzubillah, draw your God. And obviously, nowadays we know it's illegal what she did, right? Obviously you can't, the separation of church and state. But at 5th grade, she's asking, draw your God as a class project. And that was in the 80s, when I was in the 5th grade. Imagine what our kids are going through nowadays. The trials, the tribulations. They don't even know tonight is the 24th of Rabiul Akhir, 1440. They think it's another day. And they get excited because it's what? Many people say it's something. The sun and the moon, how do they act during daylight savings time? Did they fall for it? Think about it for a second. The sun and the moon, did they fall for daylight savings time? They ask America, will it start in October this year or November this year? No. Everything is fixed. We bring about turmoil to the point that they say that because of daylight savings time, more people commit suicide. And there are more accidents because it becomes night earlier. And so much happens because of it. And there's an actual movement to get rid of it. I'm not advocating this way or that way. I'm just saying, look at us, that when we ask ourselves, what time is it? Is it 9:52? We think it's 9:52. It's actually after Isha, and it's actually 10:52. But we trick ourselves and say, no, it's 9:52. Because of the environment. They ask us, what day is it? We think December 31st. When it's Rabiul Akhir, the 24th, 1440. 1440 years ago, the Sahaba migrated from Mecca to Medina. They did the emigration, hijrah. But our minds aren't there. Our minds are somewhere else. But even then, you are the cream of the crop. Alhamdulillah. You being in the masjid now, you're the cream of the crop. And for this we say, Alhamdulillah. Allah has still put khair, good in the ummah, that you're in this masjid. But you realize how much of this filth has penetrated our mindsets. How are we thinking? To the point we think Islam is difficult. I'll mention something, forgive me for the brothers who might be offended by this, but just the concept. In the 90s, it was very difficult to keep a beard, right? And people thought not keeping a beard was good. And people realized, right, afterwards they did a study, you know how much money it costs to get rid of your beard? It's a lot of money. Buying shaving cream, buying a razor, or buying a machine, keeping it sharp, cleaning it, you know, just like you get a shape up. I know this because I get shape ups, so I used to get shape ups before. But anyway, you see what? Keeping it clean and making sure it's crisp, worrying about the 5 o'clock shadow, all this stress. And it costs you money. Or in order for you to keep your beard, don't do anything. That's so difficult. Procrastinate shaving, right? So this was such a hard thing in the 90s. But alhamdulillah, we have hipsters nowadays that make it easier for you to grow, for you to not spend money on this and that. But it just shows you the mindset that following Islam is so much easier. So much easier, and not following Islam is so much harder. But what shaitan says, no, it's the opposite. And he tricks us. So anyway, there will be so much fitan that people will be leaving Islam. And the people who are holding on to Islam, it's like holding on to a coal, a fiery coal. And then what happens? So Imam Mahdi rahmatullahi alayhi, people aren't aware of where he is until approximately the age of 40. And again, a lot of this is based on loose interpretations. Nothing is definite. And obviously, like for example, there was something mentioned about how towards the Day of Judgment, right? Different parts of your body and articles of clothing will speak to you, right? Toward the Day of Judgment, there'll be different apparel. parts of your clothing, and parts of your limbs that will speak to you. They'll inform you about what happens in your house or inform you about different things. So in those times, the scholars of those times gave the best of their interpretations, but they always said what? Allah knows best. Allahu A'lam, because they don't really know. If you ask one of us nowadays, we'll say, oh, this is IoT, right? How many of you know what IoT is? The Internet of Things, right? How different things communicate and whatever else. But this could be wrong as well. Yeah, sure, our shoelaces can inform us how much we've run, right? Or we can communicate with our family via mobile devices. But that might not necessarily be the exact interpretation, but you'll notice things are becoming more apparent. In the time of Umar anhu, right? Ya Sariyat al-Jabal, right? When the army was about to attack from the mountainside, right? From behind the mountain. And the Sahaba were and the Tabi'in were facing the enemy frontward, but they weren't aware of the attack from behind, right? So Umar anhu yelled, right, or spoke to be aware of the mountain, meaning cover your backs, right? Be careful. And so that communication traveled from where he was all the way to the army. And this was shocking. And there's some people maybe who heard about it in the time of the Tabi'in or disbelievers later, like, that's not possible. That's just hocus pocus, something we don't believe in. But nowadays you look at mobile communication and it makes total sense that it is possible. It's in the realm of possibility. This is where your faith overrides everything your eyes see, your ears hear, and you acknowledge it with your five senses. Because Allah can make anything possible. Right? إِنَّمَا أَمْرُهُ إِذَا أَرَادَ شَيْئًا أَن يَقُولَ لَهُ كُن فَيَكُونُ. Actually, His command is بَيْنَ الْكَافِ وَالنُّونِ. Allah doesn't even need to say kun. That's just an example for us humans to understand. So there will be so much fitan, and Imam Mahdi will be where? And it said he will be going, again in one narration, in one opinion, he'll be going to Mecca, and during that time period, there will be many people, many scholars, real scholars. It might not necessarily be the most popular ones, because again, knowledge is not a popularity contest, right? Real ilm is not based on, oh, he made me cry, he made me laugh, he made me become a better person. Real knowledge is what? Person who practices what Rasulullah commanded when it's unpopular, even if people criticize. Right? You do what's right no matter what. And you practice the knowledge Allah has given you no matter what. Even if it's against yourself. So real scholars of that time, the pinnacle of scholars of that time will be doing Hajj year in, year out, right? But they'll be trying to pay attention for Imam Mahdi. They'll think this is around the time that Imam Mahdi will emerge, radiallahu anhu. And what happens at one point in time, they'll actually find Imam Mahdi. And it is said that when they will try to basically pin him down, keep him, surround him, so they can give him bay'ah, pledge of allegiance, not the kind in school, but the real bay'ah, the real pledge of allegiance. What will happen? He will leave and go to Medina. Why? Because a real person, a real Muslim, one who fears Allah, runs away from imarah, leadership. Imarah, leadership, is such a curse, except for those who, illa mashallah, except for the very few. Why would you run toward responsibility? Leadership isn't glory. Even becoming a scholar is not glory. It's responsibility. Becoming a father is not honor, it's responsibility. Becoming an imam is responsibility. Becoming a khalifa is responsibility for the entire ummah, the entire nation. Look at the story of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He had Aslam rahmatullahi alayhi with him, and he would go around Medina. And one time there was this lady with her kids on the outskirts of Medina. She couldn't even reach Medina. It's at nighttime. And she's boiling a pot. And in this pot, what happens? Umar sees that the kids are crying, because as he's passing by, doing his rounds, he hears of children crying. He approaches, sees a woman cooking, it looks like she's cooking, and he asks, basically tells her, why are the kids crying? She says, out of hunger. So he tells her to fear Allah and feed the kids. Right? Kids are crying to feed the kids. She says, Basically, there's no food. There's nothing being cooked. It's just water boiling. I have nothing to feed them. I'm hoping that the kids go to sleep before they realize there's no food. The kids are so hungry. And most of you have read this. You do ta'aleem in your house, I hope, inshallah. So you read this story. That she has nothing to feed their kids. They're trying to get to Medina to get some money from Baytul Mal, her haqq from the Muslims. And what happens is, there's no food in there. Umar who didn't realize, didn't know this, he said, fear Allah, feed your kids. And she says what? I'm paraphrasing, there's no food, I'm basically trying to, have the kids go to sleep thinking they're expecting food. And then she basically mentioned something to the effect that there will be something between her and Umar and the Khalifa on the Day of Judgment. And so, he asks, how can the Khalifa know about you and your situation? And what was her response, loosely speaking? If he wasn't responsible for me, he shouldn't have taken up that position of leadership. And she was right. If he wasn't going to be responsible for her, he shouldn't have accepted that position. So anybody who is in that khilafah, that government, that area, right, is now the responsibility of the leader. And that is leadership. What did Umar do? Rushed back to the Baytul Mal and asked his servant to help. He basically filled up a sack with food and stuff, right, for them. And then asked his servant, his helper, to put it onto his own back. So Aslam knows who Umar is. If there was going to be another prophet after Rasulullah, who would it be? Umar, the foresight, the wisdom, right? Amazing follower. He asks Aslam, will you be carrying this weight for me, my responsibility on the Day of Judgment? And he says, obviously no. So he just helped Umar, the Khalifa, of one who governed over like 3 continents. Such a huge area. Carrying a sack for someone who's destitute. A lady, widowed with her children. And then he even cooks it himself. Till Aslam says, I saw the smoke going through his thick beard. Radiyallahu anhu. And then after the food is cooked, he waited around a little bit. And so Aslam asked, you're waiting here, what's the reason? He said, I saw them crying. It makes me happy to see them enjoying for a little bit. So then the mother says to him, to Umar radiallahu anhu, you are better fitting as a Khalifa than the Khalifa. Not knowing that this is Umar radiallahu anhu. And again, patched clothing, the way he dresses and walks and so on and so forth. So this is the position of leadership. So when the scholars try to, and the pious try to surround Imam Mahdi, what does he do? He runs. He knows what responsibility is and doesn't want to accept it. Why? Why would you accept that responsibility? What can you do right now for the people of such and such locations? And if you don't do anything, you'll be held accountable on the Day of Judgment. Your feet can't even move. So he leaves. And this happens when they go to Medina, he comes back to Makkah. This happens a couple of times until he realizes that what? That there's so much fitan, there's so much trouble that people need him. And basically he has to assist the ummah. So he accepts it. And basically he emerges. And as he emerges, what happens? The majority of the people of that time, let's do a question here. How many of you think that around the time of Imam Mahdi, the Muslims of the time will support him? Raise your hand. How many of you think that if Imam Mahdi comes right now, radiallahu anhu, we're going to support him? Inshallah, we're going to support him. Right? Inshallah, good. But how many of you think the majority of the Muslims are going to support him? Does he look like us? He's going to be looking like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Trying to look as close to the sunnah as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's not what the non-Muslims call moderate. He's not a moderate. What does moderate mean? This just, na'uzubillah, is their interpretation, trying to deceive us. So how are most of the Muslims going to treat Imam Mahdi? There will be armies with Muslims in there trying to attack Imam Mahdi rahmatullah alayhi. Armies with Muslims in it trying to kill Imam Mahdi rahmatullah alayhi. To the point that there will be an army that will travel. And again, Imam Maulana Kashif, Dhamma Barakatuh, will inshallah go over this in more detail during his Fajr talks. But one of the armies will try to do what? Imam Mahdi will be in Makkah at the time, and this army will try to go reach him in Makkah. And they're trying to basically destroy Imam Mahdi, destroy the Kaaba, and at that point in time, the earth will swallow up this army. The earth will swallow up this army. And as far as the gist of it, where the army gets swallowed up, this is a famous hadith in, I think, Babu Niyya in Sahih Bukhari, where Aisha radiallahu anha asks that as this caravan, right, this army, this caravan, travels toward Makkah, the whole ground will swallow them. So Aisha radiallahu anha asks that from the first to the end will be swallowed up, but there are people amongst them, there will be people amongst them who are not necessarily with them with the same intention. They didn't join that caravan to kill Imam Mahdi. Maybe they were there for business. There are people who, vend, right? They might sell coffee, tea, they do other stuff, so on and so forth. Or there might be a cleaning crew with them. There might be a chef and so on and so forth. So how come everybody gets destroyed, swallowed up by the ground? Rasulullah says that in this dunya, there will be, from the beginning to the end, will be swallowed up, and I'm paraphrasing, but on the day of judgment, they'll rise up based on their intentions. But in the dunya, if you're with people of evil, then if they get hurt, you're partly to blame. You shouldn't have been with them. You shouldn't have been with them. There was a person from the family of Rasulullah radiallahu anhu who at that time wasn't able to migrate. So he ended up showing up to a battlefield but not fighting. And he loved Rasulullah a lot. But he ended up getting captured. Why? Because he showed up in the battlefield with the side of the enemy. Even though he was bringing news to Rasulullah about what's happening in Makkah and so on and so forth. So if you're with people who are doing bad things, if bad things happen to them, it'll happen to you too. So you have to be careful of who you're around. If you're around bad friends, bad things might happen to you too. Right? It says, if you know, al-maru ala dini khalili, right? You can judge a person to some degree by seeing the friends they keep. By seeing the friends they keep. So khair, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help Imam Mahdi over everyone else. Over almost everyone else. And the amount of people that will initially join him are like the people who were with Rasulullah in the time of Badr. Around 300 odd people. Some say 313 or 300 something. So that's how few Muslims will join the army of Imam Mahdi, even though at that time there will be so many Muslims. Nowadays, the conservative numbers of how many Muslims are there in the world right now is what? 1.6, 1.7? Some say 2.3 billion Muslims right now. So many Muslims. But which religion is being attacked the most right now? Muslims. Even though Muslims are supposed to be the people of righteousness. And they're being attacked the most. Even if they tell you it's not your religion, but it is. So, why? Because the Sahaba asked, is it because, قِلَّةٍ نَحْنُ يَوْمَئِذٍ Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? And is it because we were very few in number in those days? And the response given is no. But you will be what? You will be in value like the suds, the filth, the foam of the ocean. Like the foam of the ocean. And what is the foam of the ocean? It's the worst part of the ocean. The filth that washes up ashore, the sea doesn't even want it. So it washes up on shore. The syringes and all this other dirty stuff that wash up on these beaches that humans visit. That's what the Muslims will be like, regardless of their number. And the proof of this is out of all the multitude of Muslims, only 300 odd numbers of Muslims will join and help Imam Mahdi. Even though we have a command, when Imam Mahdi emerges, we have to join him. And there'll be an announcement made from we don't know where, in the skies, about the emergence of Imam Mahdi to follow him. And when Imam Mahdi comes about, he will start doing what? He will start spreading justice on this earth. And through this justice will come peace. But the justice entails getting rid of evil. Fighting evil. Fighting evil. Toward the day of judgment, there will be so many groups amongst the Muslims. And many of those groups, the majority will be on evil. They will not be proper. These deviant sects. And what happens? We wonder, is it because of the scholars and the scholarship we didn't learn? It's based on our human nature. We constantly try to please ourselves. Even to the point that it's in our language. They ask you who's number one. When they say number, you gotta take care of number one. Who do they refer to? Yourself. You're number one. Take care of yourself. We're not number one. We're not even number two. We don't believe. We are not believers until ourselves and our parents and everything we have is less beloved than Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But we're not truly believers till we love Allah more than anything else. So Allah is number one. Who do we love second most? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So at best we come number three. At best we're number three, not number one. Allah is number one. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. Allah is one. And I say He's number one, of course. So we have to do what? We have to take care of our internal issues. Shaitan will not destroy us by himself. Shaitan needs an inside man. He needs an inside man. Who's that inside man? My desires. Shaitan will not say, let's say for example, I didn't like water. I love water, but let's say I didn't like water is better than most of the stuff they sell in the markets nowadays, right? Especially if it's Zamzam, right? But they don't sell Zamzam here. So anyway, so water. So if I love water, if I didn't like water, Shaitan says, oh, do this haram, steal this book, and I'll give you water. I'm not going to steal the book, I don't want water, right? But if I love water so much, this is Zamzam water that Rasulullah also might have drunken out of. Oh, obviously Shaitan's lying, right? But now I'm like, all right, what do I need to do to get it? So now I might do evil deeds thinking I'm going to get reward. Na'udhu. So I'm trying to go pray Jum'ah, right? And how amazing is it to be the first to enter Jum'ah, right? We have to pray Jum'ah. So I'm trying to pray Jum'ah, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to miss the prayer. I start blocking the driveway of the neighbors of the Masajid. To do a halal, I did haram. And I think I'm so pious. Look at his beard. Look at how he wears. And what do the neighbors see? Non-Muslims. I don't know if the neighbors are Muslim here. But the non-Muslims see what? A brother who thinks he's Muslim is blocking my driveway. There was a brother, na'udhu billah, may Allah save us from this. I laugh sometimes, I should be crying. There was a neighbor of one masjid in another state, and that the neighbor was handicapped or handicapable. And he actually had the reserve sign, right? The sign in front of his house. And a person who was trying to catch Jum'ah parked and took his parking spot. Na'udhu billah. And that led to a fight. Who was wrong? And then the Muslims came out, they saw the fight, and who did they join? The Muslims. When the non-Muslim was right. So what do? We follow what we think is right when we're wrong. When we're supposed to follow the haqq, follow the truth, even if it's against us. So toward the day of judgment, Imam Mahdi rahmatullahi will what? He will bring the sunnah, regardless of people who like it or dislike it. He will get rid of evil by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But during his duration, during the time he will be there, right, Dajjal will come about. And Dajjal will be so strong, that Imam Mahdi himself will not be able to fight him. He will not be able to fight him. And Dajjal will be so strong, right? Dajjal will be so strong that he will travel throughout the earth, and he won't be able to enter Makkah and Medina, but he will wait outside the cities. And the people, the fusaq, the sinners, the munafiqeen, the hypocrites, and the non-Muslims who have entered Makkah and Medina will leave. Will leave to the outskirts and then get trapped by Dajjal. And I've heard this from a scholar. It's like And the scholar gave a good example. I like it so much, I'm copying it. May Allah reward the scholar. He said it's actually like the ice cream trucks, right, nowadays. Right? It is said that men will try to hold their families back from Dajjal. And they're just like, no, we have to go. So it's almost like ice cream trucks. Does the ice cream truck enter your house? No, it waits outside, plays this haram music, and the kids go berserk. They're like, ice cream. It's ridiculously expensive. You get like a tub for the price of that one little bar. And what happens? They go berserk. We have to go. It's time to party. Doesn't matter. Maybe it's like cold outside and they're still coming in October. And you're like, oh, I got to get some ice cream. SubhanAllah. So look at the effect. Right? The Dajjal's effect will be stronger than the ice cream truck on kids. These are my words. But I'm telling you it's true. The Dajjal's effects will be stronger, and the family members of pious Muslims will want to leave Makkah and Medina and join the army of Dajjal. Of course, Dajjal's not going to say, join my army of hellfire, right? That's not what he's going to say. He's going to act as if he is, at first what? An amazing person, then a prophet, then na'udhu billah Allah. That he is your Lord, na'udhu billah. And guess what? All throughout the globe, they love it. Man of the year, man of the century. That's who people will take Dajjal to be. And he comes, nowadays they ask you how to solve world hunger, right? And they come up with these GMO seeds. They don't produce seeds afterwards, right? And that's how we're going to solve hunger. Look at the lies, right? So toward the day of judgment, Dajjal will travel into different places. And where he goes, people will see crops and vegetation growing, food, wealth. Don't you want Dajjal to come to your village? That's the fitna, na'udhu billah. Everybody wants Dajjal, almost everyone wants Dajjal to come to his area. And what happens? He's going to take people to the hellfire. First class tickets. Straight to the hellfire. He'll have with him what is transmitted as two rivers. One river, which is appealing, he's going to pass it off as Jannah, as cool water, as beauty, as amazing. And another, a river of hellfire. And actually it's the exact opposite. Exact opposite. That if Dajjal comes to you and he has a river of water and the river of fire, go into the river of fire. Go into the river of fire. So this is a trick of shaitan. I want to cover tricks real briefly because I don't know if I'll come back. This place is pretty far. So, basically, how many of you know the trick of, at the time of Musa alayhi salatu salam, the magic trick? Right? What was the magic trick? Amazing. That's a good mashallah. So in a magic trick, there's something called a reveal, right? So there's a trick. So what the magicians in that time did is what they were doing is they were throwing down their sticks and it becomes what? Snakes. And it was so amazing and shocking that a person like Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, how strong was he? Stronger than 10 men, right? He lifted the cover of the well by himself when it took 10 strong men to lift it, right? Right? So it's a long story. Okay, inshallah, is very strong, like ridiculously strong. Like alayhi salatu wasalam. I shouldn't say they were ridiculous. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us so much strength. Someone who is so strong. He saw the magicians throw down their ropes. And he jumped. He got shocked. And what happens? He was commanded by Allah to throw his staff down. And what happened is his staff became a snake and started eating the other snakes. What was really happening? What's my point? What was really happening? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the trick behind the magic trick. Tells us what the magicians did. What did the magicians do? فَسَحَرُوا أَعْيُنَ النَّاسِ. The trick that the magicians had was a visual trick. All they did is they tricked the eyes into thinking these were snakes. They weren't really snakes. But what the magicians saw, they saw their ropes not moving because they don't fall for their own tricks, right? And they saw the staff of Musa becoming a real snake. So what is this? what is this? And is gobbling up their ropes. And so when the people are shocked by the ropes of the magicians, and Musa was shocked himself, the magicians are shocked by the staff of Musa that really became a serpent, a snake. And they believed in Musa ﷺ to the point that when they were threatened to death, they didn't care. They believe in the Lord of Musa and Fir'aun. They believe in the Lord of Musa and Harun ﷺ, regardless of what Fir'aun did. So there was a trick. There was a trick, and people were duped. People were duped. Dajjal will be playing tricks after tricks after tricks. Tricks after tricks after tricks. And subhanAllah, we live in a time where we're constantly surrounded by trickery. Fake news has been around for centuries. It's not new. But not what they call fake news. Just the fact that a man, right, comes down your chimney on the 25th of December and you have to leave cookies and milk for him is fake news. Right? That if your teeth are left under a pillow, somebody hoppity hops or a fairy comes and replaces it with money, it's fake news. And if they grow up on these lies, and their parents are teaching these lies, na'udhu billah, and then they grow up and na'udhu billah, they think that Isa ﷺ is more than a prophet. Because believing in lies becomes easy for such people. So we have to be aware of the constant tricks around us. Amongst them, we mentioned, if you're not fit for a position of leadership, don't volunteer, help. I might be short on time, jazakallah, but so if we're not fit for certain things, be a follower. Help Maulana Kashif, down barakatuh. Help scholars. Help people who are doing what's good. It is so amazing to clean the masjid. Question, show of hands. When's the last time somebody here cleaned the masjid? Raise your hand. Right, you clean the masjid, mashallah, mashallah, mashallah. You know who else cleaned the masjid? Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. You know who else cleaned the masjid? Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu. You know who else cleaned the masjid? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. If we clean the masjid, we're going to be like them, inshallah. So we have to see what's the truth. And I know we could have went into a lot of details about 3 different tribes coming, 3 different armies coming to attack and being destroyed. We could have talked about Ya'juj and Ma'juj and all these other things. But I fear that we're just going to feel like we're helpless, and we're allowed to remain helpless until Imam Mahdi helps us. But that's not the system of Allah. Because we believe in who? Allah. Allah is the one who allowed the Sahaba to travel over water. Allah is the one who put fear in the hearts of the enemies. Allah is the one who put food in the house of the Sahaba when they didn't have food. And the Sahabi went to the masjid, did wudu, went to the masjid, prayed, came back, is there food? No. Goes to the masjid, prays, comes back, is there food? No. Goes to the masjid, prays, comes back, and I think on the 3rd or 4th time, all of a sudden, there's food. There's like wheat or some kind of dough coming out. That if they hadn't peeked into the actual machine afterwards, it would have went on until the Day of Judgment. The faith is supposed to be attached to Allah. To the point that when Rasulullah ﷺ passed away, and the biggest tragedy for this ummah was what? The passing of Rasulullah ﷺ. Bar none. But when Rasulullah ﷺ passed away, what did Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu say? Not immediately, but soon afterwards. Obviously he said, "Tibta hayya wa mayyita." But he said something. He said, "Man kana ya'budu Muhammadan fa innahu qad mat." Man kana ya'budu Muhammadan, whoever used to worship Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, indeed he has passed away. Wa man kana ya'budu Allah fa inna Allah hayyun la yamut. Whoever worships Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, indeed he has passed away. But whoever worships Allah, he is ever living, will never die. Allah is the creator of life and death. So my dear respected brothers and elders, our faith has to be in Allah. If you're here to increase your faith, trust in Allah. وَإِذَا تَوَكَّلْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. If you're going to trust in anyone, trust in Allah. When you need something, ask Allah. Put your trust in Allah. So my dear respected brothers, there will be so many tragedies that will happen. there will be so many trials and fitan. We're seeing them actually in our times. We can't even discuss them openly. There are different age groups here as well. But there are solutions. And there aren't solutions now. There's always been solutions. Look in the Quran. But just like hieroglyphics, how many of you know what hieroglyphics are? Raise your hand. Right? Hieroglyphics. Keep your hands raised, just for a second. Hieroglyphics, all right? Raise, good. How many of you can read them? Keep them raised. Right? So, there will come a time when people won't be able to understand Quran like we cannot understand hieroglyphics. Do you understand? Doesn't matter how much Babel you have, Google Translate, doesn't matter. وَرَبَّكَ فَكَبِّرْ. It's amazing, it's a palindrome. What does it mean? What is a palindrome? Like Bob, right? So, there's so many amazing things in the Quran. But why are we truly understanding it? And when we understand it, why are we following it? I'll try to conclude with this. Umar radiallahu anhu, one of the characteristics, I love talking about Umar radiallahu anhu, and any of the Sahaba, it was described about him, كَانَ وَقَّافًا عِنْدَ الْقُرْآنِ. كَانَ وَقَّافًا عِنْدَ الْقُرْآنِ. As soon as something about the Quran is mentioned, right? If he was going one way, he would immediately stop and try to follow the Quran. To the point that someone who was very ignorant said something very ignorant to him, and he was going to fix him straight, right? The way he does it, mashallah anhu. And another Sahabi mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and the translation is, to basically let go and forgive those who are ignorant. Umar stopped immediately. Complete change. Not just angry anymore. Complete change. Complete change. Forgiveness. I love this person now. For the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to adopt the Quran. We need to become people of the Quran. Obviously, we need to memorize the Quran. Alhamdulillah, your children, you yourselves and your children are memorizing Quran. Alhamdulillah. Your family members are memorizing Quran. We need to understand it, adopt it, personify it, become like the Quran. The characteristic of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when our mother Aisha radiallahu anha was asked, how was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And what was the response? Kana khuluquhu al-Quran. His mannerisms was the Quran. It was like the Quran walking. So my dear respected brothers and elders, if any one of us can become like the Quran walking, Imam Mahdi will be far away. There'll be no need. There'll be no need. Umar bin Abdul Aziz rahmatullah alayh brought about change in, I think, Bani Umayyah, right? Brought about change by the permission of Allah. In how many years? How many of you, actually, let me back up, because I don't know the masjid. How many of you have heard the name Umar bin Abdul Aziz? Alhamdulillah, mashallah, right? How many of you know that he's considered maybe the fifth of the Khulafa Rashidin, right? Mashallah. He brought an amazing change to the point that people who are rich couldn't find people to give zakat to, right? Couldn't find people to give zakat to. And the rich were worried, the pious are now rich, right? The good people are rich, right? And they're saying, how can I fulfill my obligatory requirement, my requirement? Zakat is just as far as salah is, right? Charity, 2.5% of your excess wealth that 1 year has passed on, is mandatory just like your prayer is Fajr, Zuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha. So I need to give this to them. I don't find anybody who's poor, and they're worried. That's how much wealth is there, to the point that people who are faking poverty, they're not to be found. And before that time, in the time of Umar bin Abdul Aziz, the Baytul Mal came to an unprecedented low. And he had taqwa, and then he became wealthy again. The Baytul Mal itself, even though he was poor. Radullahu anhu. So how long did his khilafah last? Who knows that? How long did this 360 or 180 U-turn, right? 360. How long did it take? So it's 180, right? I forget, forgive me, it's late. So how long did it take? 2.5 Islamic years. Not 2.5 American years, right? 2.5 Islamic years. There's a difference, right? In 2.5 Islamic years, the ummah changed. And it felt like the time of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So my dear respected brothers and elders, we have to stop thinking, I need someone to save me. And we have to start thinking, I need to save my brothers. I need to save my family. I need to save my community. I need to save Long Island. I need to save America and the world. There are mustad'afina fil ard right now. People who are so weak, they can't help it. They're being force-fed haram food in the daytime in Ramadan by the government, forced to break their fast. They're not able to leave. There's so much other zulm, injustice I can't even mention here because of the climate. But subhanAllah, who's there to help them? When I'm worried about taking selfies and taking the best angle of my food, it's so amazing, and not even taking a bite. Look at where our hearts are. Our hearts need to be cleansed, like the Masajid need to be cleansed. With that, inshallah, we'll conclude. Forgive me for going over. I didn't cover Imam Mahdi as in detail as I was expected to, but forgive me for that. But I hope, inshallah, we'll become better people going forward. And that includes being good to ourselves, meaning our ruh, our iman, our faith, our jannah, our wives, our parents, our children, our families, and then fal-amthal, neighbors, co-workers, so on and so forth. We have to be better to them than we are to ourselves. Inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. We'll begin the Q&A, inshallah. And I'm not sure about the manners. Jazakallah for respecting the no video rule and no picture rule. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. I really appreciate your kindness. May Allah grant you Jannatul Firdaus bi ghayri hisab, and grant you aman and safety and afiyah in your families, and bless you with everything that is good in this world, and save you from all the fitan ma dhahara minha wa ma batan. Ameen.
Brothers, Jazakallah khair for being patient. Food is on the way, so if you can just wait for another few minutes, inshallah. These flyers have been passed around, so if anybody wants to, we already have a few questions. So we'll begin with, if you have any more questions, inshallah, you can, for the sisters already have it, the number I told them. Now it's for the brothers, 516-405-0425. I'll repeat it again, 516-405-0425. So can we have the questions, the brother who has the questions on the iPad?
The sister says the mic, they have their own, they don't need the mic, right? Okay, inshallah. I have a very loud voice, testing. Can you guys all hear me? Yeah, but I'm pretty sure we should take advantage of Maulana Kashif. MashaAllah, he's obviously a great scholar. He graduated in the 90s. He's one of the prominent scholars in this area, and obviously the style of scholarship is you can't really tell who's a scholar nowadays. A, because they're humble, MashaAllah, and so and for many other reasons as well. MashaAllah, la tuzakku anfusakum wa a'lamu biman ittaqa. Right? But we should take advantage of the scholars in our area, the ones who are certified, and obviously we should, to have Maulana Kashif in our community, in this community is amazing. I personally went to go study because in my area, 99.9% of the people in the community were non-Muslim. And they had just a few masajid, but they didn't speak a language I understood. So alhamdulillah, subhanahu gave me the ability to go and learn. So I'm still learning, obviously, but anyway, so the questions now, do I click on this and, okay. Okay, so. All right, so we have a question. We have to be good to our parents. We agree, okay? What are the responsibilities of being a good father and husband? Is it okay to neglect the family in lieu of being good to one's own parents, right? So there's a famous hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Salman al-Farsi anhu had advised his brother in hijrah, right? Basically, there was a Sahabi who was very pious. There were multiple Sahabas who were so pious that they wouldn't necessarily eat much. They would fast almost every day. And they would spend the whole night praying, to the point that they didn't necessarily have any need for their family, right? Meaning, so in that manner. So the family members were, wondering, because they would start wearing tattered clothing. They wouldn't dress up nice for their husbands because the husband wouldn't even look at them. So when Salman al-Farsi who went to his brother from Hijrah, right? He basically, that Sahabi came home. I forget his name off the top of my head. I don't know if it's Abu Dhar or Abu ad-Darda, one of the two. May Allah forgive me. So anyway, the wife was home, and this was before hijab, and Salman al-Farsi who came by, and he asked basically, where's my brother? And obviously brother means this ukhuwa fil Islam. You're made a brother to another Sahabi. So it was mentioned that he wasn't around, and so he waited for the Sahabi to come home, his brother to come home. As soon as his brother came home, the brother basically presented some food to Salman anhu, but he himself didn't eat. So Salman asked him, why aren't you eating? And the answer given was, because I'm fasting. So then he basically obliged him to eat with him. And then later that night, the Sahabi made the bed for Salman anhu, but he himself got up to pray. Salman anhu forced him to go to bed. Does that make sense? And then basically, as soon as it seemed like Salman was sleeping, this Sahabi got up to pray tahajjud again. But Salman forced him back, said go to bed. Basically, till a portion of the night had passed, then Salman got up and woke up his brother in Islam, and they both prayed. And this Sahabi was very upset. But look at the manners. He was very upset, but didn't say anything. He didn't say anything harsh. But in the morning, he went to go to Rasulullah to complain. Because Salman had stopped him from his fast, stopped him from tahajjud, and stopped him from other things that he thought was very pious, reciting Quran, so on and so forth. Salman had told him, and the end of it is, Inna li badanika alayka haqq, wa inna li zawjika alayka haqq. And there are many other parts in there that I don't remember the verbiage verbatim. The end of it is فَأَعْطِ كُلَّ ذِي حَقٍّ حَقَّهُ, right? That indeed your body has a right over you. Indeed your family, your spouse has a right over you, right? And so on and so forth. So the end of it is فَأَعْطِ كُلَّ ذِي حَقٍّ حَقَّهُ. Give everything its fair share. Give everything its fair share. Now at Fajr, when Rasulullah was informed about this complaint, Rasulullah had mentioned something to the effect that Sadaqa Salman, which is a beautiful saying, that Salman has spoken the truth. Now everything deserves its share. And the problem isn't that we're giving too much right to the parents. We're not supposed to neglect one concern for the other. Does that make sense? If you see people who work out and they don't have leg days, how do you guys feel about that? Right? No leg days? That's zulm, that's injustice to your legs, right? So everything needs its fair share. Everything needs its fair share. Your parents have rights over you. Your kids have rights over you, right? The ulama, the scholars have rights over you. Does that make sense? The masjid has a right over you. Your co-workers have a right over you. Be fair. Be fair. Rasulullah had to pray in tahajjud time instead of praying during the daytime because of the rights of the people on him. Don't you think he loved praying more than every one of us? But he had to wait for tahajjud to communicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So anyway, so we have to be right, right?
Bismillah. There's a black Corolla blocking some cars in the parking lot. Is requested to move it.
So may Allah subhanahu reward the brother who actually moves it. You get reward for moving it. And the faster you move it without breaking the speed limit, the more reward you get, inshallah. So please don't be an obstruction, right? Inshallah. Question, those who read the Quran and sin, will the Quran intercede for them on the Day of Judgment? So I want to explain this carefully, right? If you're doing sins, obviously you have to stop. But that doesn't mean you stop reading the Quran. But the people who read the Quran and go against it, the Quran will complain against them. Will intercede against them, right? And the people who practice the Quran will intercede for them, right? But many people are transitioning. Remember this. Many people are transitioning. Nobody's perfect, right? If there was somebody who's perfect, we wouldn't need Imam Mahdi, right? So we're all transitioning. We're all trying to be good. So if you're starting to read Quran and you have a lifestyle that needs changing, continue reading the Quran. Maybe you feel like changing because of the Quran. But nevertheless, know that the Quran can intercede against those who don't practice it. Number two, how do you grow a beard? Right? How do you grow a beard? So you leave it alone. Now, you don't have to have a long beard. That's not the requirement. The requirement is to leave it alone for the brothers, obviously, right? So for the brothers, you leave it alone. You leave your beard alone. That's all it takes. Once it reaches a fist, you can basically bring it to a fist, but leave it alone. That's all it takes, right? So basically it takes knowledge on how to cut it, right? That's what it takes. We're supposed to act based on whatever knowledge we have, right? So when the Muslims who go against the Imam Mahdi will beget sin because they might think he's an imposter. Okay. So we're supposed to act based on whatever knowledge we have, correct, right? Well, now it becomes, what is knowledge, right? It becomes philosophical. Remember, you have to practice prophetic knowledge, right? Prophetic knowledge. Like deep knowledge, like Abdullah bin Abbas anhu, who understood that this surah tells of the coming of the mortality of the Prophet, the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Deeper knowledge. It is possible to have housing without mortgages. It is possible to have hand-slaughtered meat in every household. You can actually make money off of it. Billions of dollars, it's a billion-dollar industry. Otherwise, you want to be Mickey D's and all this other stuff, right? There's no money in food, right? So, but what happens is we have to ask ourselves, what I know, is it proper? And in this, ask Maulana Kashif. Honestly, ask him, I learned this. And if he doesn't know, he might not know everything, I might not know everything, at least he will find out for you, inshallah. Does that make sense? Because part of knowledge is to say, I don't know when I don't know. Part of knowledge is to say, I don't know when I don't know. And by the way, it's not just that. The Sharia Board in New York, you can give them a call, ask them any question, and they'll give you the answer free of charge, inshallah. So there are places to find authentic knowledge, inshallah. So remember, when Imam Mahdi comes, people will think he's an imposter. Well, people will think he's an imposter, but that's not my fault. It's your job not to join the imposters, and your job to find truth from falsehood. It's your job to work in a halal industry. It's your job to raise your kids right. And we try. Does that make sense? We'll continue to try. And sometimes if you're confused, don't fight. Right? Don't fight. There are some people who just abstained during times of fitan. Don't fight if you're confused. Don't hurt somebody. Al-Muslimu man salim al-Muslimuna min lisanihi wa yadihi. Right? So al-Muslim is somebody who others are saved from his hands and his tongues. Right? His tongue. Is lipstick allowed during fasting time and for nail polish during prayer?
That's from another day. This is today.
Okay, that's what you meant? Okay, sorry. I don't even know the answer to that because I have no idea what the ingredients are, if they're porous or not porous. How would Imam Mahdi look? Right? So I kind of avoided this answer. There's differences of narrations of how he would look and his physical appearance and whatnot. But my question is, depending on how he looks, what are you going to do? Try to make yourself look like that? There'll be many Mahdis, fake Mahdis, imposters, who will come by and act like they're the real Mahdi. The look doesn't necessarily have to do, meaning how's your eyebrow? Is it high arched, unibrow, not unibrow, so on and so forth? It doesn't necessarily matter. That's not what you're looking for, right? You're going to look for what? Signs of prostration, right? That's what you look for. How are their mannerisms? They'll have the manners of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we tend to get lost in the visual appearance. Rasulullah sallallahu, when he was attacked, he wouldn't la yantaqimu li nafsi. He would not take revenge for himself. Imam Mahdi will not take revenge for himself as well. So look for prophetic signs, the mannerisms of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Is this from today? What was your reply when the 5th grade teacher, yeah, I think so, told you to draw, na'uzubillah. I did blank paper with my name on it, that was it. Alhamdulillah, I can't become a mushrik, na'uzubillah. Will shaitan be with the Dajjal during any time period? Well, shaitan's obviously celebrating, but I don't know necessarily what shaitan's going to do. I don't have it on my outlook or anything. I don't know, sorry. Yes? supposed to run away. Okay, a good question though. How should we react when the forces against us, they're forced against us through the Quran and Sunnah? All right, so good question, if I understand it right. Toward the end of the time, there'll be so much fitna, so much fitan, so many trials, we won't know what to do. If it becomes so much we don't know what to do, it has been advised for some Muslims to seclude themselves in a place where they can worship Allah peacefully. And this is, for example, in those times when maybe there's so much attacks going on, like for example, the Muslims who are being forced to break their fast. So if you can find an area that's away from the population, where no one can find you, you can practice your religion, you can, homestead, work off the ground, do so and preserve your deen. In the times of, in the last century, in the USSR, right, they were wiping out Muslims like crazy. And they were trying to find out if anybody was a Muslim. And Muslims would go in the middle of the night, have a little place under the basement, and under candlelight, in secret, teach their kids Quran, right? So do what you can to save your religion, right, in those times. And that means peacefully, you basically be as peaceful and save your religion by teaching your kids. And the best way to teach kids is through practice. If you start giving one of your sons a big gift, and the second son gets nothing, or gets a cheap gift, they understand that's injustice. And you tell them be fair, but they saw what you did, right? If you're unfair to your sons and your daughters, they're going to learn what you do more than they learn what you say. So you have to practice justice. If many people get guidance through following a scholar, is it possible the scholar himself is misguided? If that's the case, all right. So the question is, what happens if the scholars are misguided? And the truth of the matter is, anyone can be misguided. A person can pass themselves off as a scholar, or B, a scholar himself gets misguided. Are there scholars who don't read Surah Fatiha? No, right? In Surah Fatiha, what do we ask? Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. Oh Allah, guide us to the straight path. What do the Sahaba ask? Guide us to the straight path. What did the Prophet ask? Rasulullah ask? Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. We're all trying to be guided to the straight path. We're all looking for the straight path, and we might make mistakes. Scholars, not me, astaghfirullah, but scholars might make mistakes. Everybody might make mistakes. Now the question is it a deliberate mistake? Are they deliberately misguiding? Or what's the scenario? True scholars, for example, have a scholar that they report to.
By mistake, somebody wore the jacket of another brother. It's a brown jacket, was hanging in that corridor besides the office. So if the brother is hearing this announcement, please, or anybody who is still here and is wearing a jacket and was hanging there, please double check your jacket, because that brother can't leave. The keys of his cars were in the jacket. It's a brown jacket. Jazakallah.
May Allah help the brother. So anyone can be misguided. And we ask, like for example, the reverts that I'm around, reverts, right? R-E-V-E-R-T-S. They basically have the same question, who do you follow and whatnot. Scholarship, you'll notice the fruit of scholarship is in their manners, in the way they act, right? Inshallah. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to basically learn as much as possible. A lot of knowledge we know. We know we're supposed to be at Fajr, in the first line as much as possible. So a lot of this is not necessarily, where we get misguided on. Does that make sense? And they'll basically ask for help. At the end of the day, if truly somebody is wondering if there's like a misguided scholar, they want basically to truly learn, Allah is always around. Ask Allah, oh Allah, I am lost. Rabbi inni maghlubun fantasir, right? Or ask Allah, Allah, help me find ihdini as-siratal mustaqim. Ask Allah, oh Allah, guide me to your straight path, right? And I'm not trying to advocate self-learning when you actually do have proper scholars, right? Because I think more people get misguided from self-learning when they have scholarship. When you don't have scholarship, yes, you learn. And even when you have scholarship, you learn, but you validate and verify. What are scholars there for? You ask them, I learned this. Is this accurate? Is this wrong? Is this qalqala or is it not qalqala, right? Is this? Ask them all these array of questions. Comes to your mind? I mean, don't ask them stuff like, what if a pink elephant with this? Don't ask them like crazy questions that are not necessarily necessary. But ask them things that you need. Right? Does that make sense? May Allah SWT help you. But alhamdulillah, we have scholarship, especially in this New York area. There's a lot of it. May Allah SWT bless the community. Okay, anything else? Last one. How will we know who is the real Imam Mahdi, since anyone can claim that they're him? Correct. But when Imam Mahdi emerges, truly, you'll hear a sound in the sky. And basically, you can also observe from his mannerisms, the way he acts. Are these prophetic manners? I think actually, hearing these questions, I realize there's a bigger problem. The actual problem is we don't know who Rasulullah is. I just realized this. We might not know who Rasulullah was. What were his manners? How did he live? If we don't know how to recognize those signs, then we'll probably not recognize Imam Mahdi. People know what emos are, right? And something like that. People know what hipsters are, right? Hipsters don't say, I'm a hipster, tatted, right? Na'uzubillah, no. Hipsters don't announce that. But people who are around them know who's a hipster, or this, or try to be like them, na'uzubillah, right? So, we're not familiar with the likes of the Sahaba, maybe. Maybe we're not familiar with the likes of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we need to get acclimated. We need to live like Rasulullah, be familiar with that, embody that, and then the rest becomes easy, inshallah. Amongst the worldly ups and downs, wealth and health, how do you achieve true inner peace? Read Quran, yes. But what is the essence of inner peace? So, Allah bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub, right? Be aware that with the remembrance of Allah, right, the heart finds tranquility. Now, we hear this, but we should truly understand it. When you hear the words of Allah, you practice it, right? Once you practice it, you get peace. Even by hearing the words of Allah, by reciting the words of Allah, you get peace. But if you want peace to be constant, you have to practice it and have your family practice it, and then work it outwards. Does that make sense? To get long-lasting peace. Once you have that long-lasting peace doesn't mean that you might not get sick. That's not long-lasting peace. Long-lasting peace means you love Allah even when you're sick. Long-lasting peace is you will never be dishonest whether you're poor or rich. Basically, you'll always be good. Right? There's a hadith of Rasulullah that I'll paraphrase. It's an amazing situation for a believer. Amazing situation for a believer that he is good. Meaning, if he is in hardship, he is patient, and that is better for him. And if he has blessings, he thanks Allah, and that is better for him. So if you want inner peace, we have to understand what inner peace is. There are some people who are very sick. When you ask them, how are you doing? They say, by Allah's blessings, I am perfect. I am good. Right? A Sahabi was asked, about how he's feeling in his sickness, right? He goes, and they asked him, Abdullah anhu, should we get a doctor for you? And he says, my doctor is the one who gave me this sickness. Meaning Allah is my doctor, He cures me, He gives me sickness and I'm pleased, and He cures me and I'm pleased. So basically, they have this super level of faith. I'm not saying don't go to a doctor. We're advised to go to a doctor when we're sick. But nevertheless, you have this peace and tranquility that people won't realize. And it's good that people don't realize it. Because if the people realized, and the kings realized how much peace we get from Islam, they would fight us for it. Can Muslims eat McDonald's food? Why? Mystery meat? How many of you know what mystery meat is? Because some of them don't even know what it is, right? So don't. Why would you eat non-Muslim food? Why would you eat non-zabiyah? Forget that. Any meat of any animal that walks on this earth should be slaughtered by hand. Who did this? Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Who did this? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It should be hand slaughtered. Not by machines, not by non-Muslims, not shot, not so on and so forth, not electric bullets and so on and so forth, not mass produced. I have people in my extended family that aren't Muslim, right? And they tried halal food, and they said, this is so amazing, that they start getting addicted to it. Subhanallah. So there's some blessing in this food. Halalan tayyiba. Start eating it. When you get older, you wonder, oh, what's wrong with my stomach? What's wrong with my gut? What's wrong with my... Eat halal food. If you can't find halal food, go vegetarian temporarily, you know? Eat eggs and fish, pescatarian. This is not a... hold on. Okay, I made a mistake. Might have been multiple mistakes. But in the fall, we switched to Eastern Daylight Time, which is actual time. The daylight savings time starts in the spring and ends in fall. So forgive me for my mistakes. This is just the tip of the iceberg. May Allah SWT forgive all of our mistakes, and especially mine. Okay, will Dajjal be an actual person, or can it be a manifestation of something else, like technology? So from what we know, he is an actual person, like an actual being. It's not technology. It's not like all of a sudden mind control and this and that. Na'uzubillah, or robots, I don't know what, aliens, right? I mean, like extraterrestrials, right? But from what we know, it's going to be a physical manifestation going around the globe, right? And basically being a source of fitna, and people will think he's right. And sorry, I understand tonight I didn't go over a lot of the details of the Day of Judgment and the signs of the Day of Judgment. I kind of wanted to basically address the heart of the people. Inshallah, then obviously you have a great scholar in your presence, mashallah. So you can ask him. And again, every Sunday Fajr, right? He has a talk, I believe, right? Every third Sunday?
Every last Sunday of the month. So.
Every last Sunday of the month. You guys would do something to get him here more often. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. My questions are... Actually, ask Mawlana Kashif the schedule. You go to the source, inshallah, right? Assalamu alaikum. Is working in the financial industry as a software engineer considered a halal income job? Is there any approximate time to Imam Mahdi's arrival? So as far as the halal jobs or haram jobs, there's a number. I'll give you this number, inshallah, so you can have it reserved, inshallah. It's 718-426-3454. 718-426-3454. And these are scholars that are muftis, right? They basically are higher than a PhD, right? And I've studied a bit in the professional or secular world as well. I'm telling you, the hours for hours. Muftis are higher leveled and highly trained compared to PhDs. And they basically are scholars, and they focus on these matters of fiqh, whether this is permissible, that's permissible. And even as this question is mentioned, there are still some things that are vague. What exactly is the scope of duty? What type of, what is the company involved in, so on and so forth. So you can talk intimately with the person on the phone, they speak multiple languages, and ask them this question and get a one-to-one free of charge. One-to-one free of charge. Most of the time when I call a company, I get an automated voice, right? So here you have a live person that's free of charge, so take advantage of it. Again, the number is 34, oh sorry, I closed it. 718-345. Hold on. 718-426-3454. Hold on a second, let me double check. I'm sorry for taking your time, but accuracy is important. I don't want to be a number for Dajjal. 718-426-3454. 718-426-3454. Ask them a question. Go to Sharia Board's website. You can ask a question in there. You can email the question. I recommend asking them, and hopefully you get the answer. I think that's all of it, if I'm not mistaken. And I realize a lot of times when we have Q&A, a lot of times we know the answer. A lot of times when we ask questions, many people know the answer. And when you absolutely have no connection with a scholar at all, worst case scenario, you're driving somewhere, you get lost, there's nobody around, istafti qalbak. Ask your heart. If it hesitates, then you know it's wrong. Basically, it's ride on the side of safety, right? Be on the side that's safer, on the safest side. Does that make sense? If you're asked, should I eat this, should I not eat it? What should your answer be? If you don't eat it, you're not going to die most of the times, right? At least in Long Island, right? Alhamdulillah. So you're not going to die if you don't eat it. So why do you need to like dance on the edge? Does that make sense? Na'uzubillah? Excuse the metaphor. But why do you need to walk on the edge or hang on the ledge? You don't need to do that. We're constantly trying to fight to see how least, what's the minimal I can do? What's the minimum I can do? We shouldn't have that mentality. We should say, how much more can I do for Islam? Does that make sense? And you'll see, inshallah, the world open for you, inshallah. Well, that will conclude. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for your time. I apologize for the many mistakes I've done. And Maulana Kashif was too polite in not correcting me. But you can ask him afterwards how many mistakes I've done and get corrected. I don't mind. Does that make sense? I don't know if you're ever going to see me again. And I'm not going to ever see you again. Except maybe inshallah in Jannah. But I do wish that you're all guided. May Allah make your religion easy for you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you strength. Don't fall for peer pressure. Does that make sense? Don't fall for the pressure. And it's not just peer pressure with youngsters. People are thinking youngsters. I know doctors, circles of doctors. And they're inundated with peer pressure as well. There are circles of attorneys. They feel pressure. IT folks. In a masjid board, there was a masjid who was asking, we're $100,000 short of building this masjid. Can we just borrow it on interest? Obviously the answer is no. So you see the pressure that comes in. That board had, at that time, maybe 6, 7 people. And one of them stood up and said, no, I'm not going to let you. And the other 6 were like, please, we have to, it's a good cause. One person stopped, alhamdulillah. And obviously we know you're not allowed to have interest. The people who built Makkah, the mushrikeen who rebuilt it, they made sure they didn't use any money from interest or from supposedly the oldest tradition in business, right? So the point is none of that haram wealth made it into the building of the Kaaba, right, inshallah? So these are mushrikeen that knew this as well. Okay, inshallah. You said that leadership should not be desired nor sought after. What would be the case if a tyrant is in power? Should someone seek leadership to fix issues? I want to say no, don't pursue leadership. Because 9 times out of 10, the person asking thinks they're the one who's going to save the ummah. When maybe they're the ones that are destroying the ummah. Do you follow? 9 out of 10 or 99 times out of 100. But there are exceptions. There are exceptions to the rule. Just like if you're about to die out of hunger, and the only amount of food that you have that can save you from death from hunger is pork, in that scenario, that's the exception, right? You don't eat it beyond the amount that you need to sustain your life. But yes, do you follow? So there are exceptions to the rule. But most of the time, the exception doesn't happen in Masjid Hamza, usually, right? So, no. And then he said, you go to... What are some tricks Dajjal will do on us if you go to someone's house? What are some tricks Dajjal will do on us, right? He'll, these are very famous. He'll cause it to rain. It'll make it seem like it's raining. He'll order the ground to produce produce, bring forth its fruits and vegetables and whatnot, and basically it'll produce a lot of produce. So there'll be a lot of wealth that Dajjal will try to make apparent that it came from him. Do you follow? And this will be the tricks of Dajjal. But most of the tricks of Dajjal are not repeatable. So he will execute a person, meaning he'll split them in half till there'll be a distance between both sides. Then he'll command this person to come back to him. This person will come back up smiling and say, now I know for sure you're Dajjal. Dajjal will try to kill him again. Try to cut his throat. But it will be changed to some form of metal, and Dajjal will not be able to kill him twice. So he ends up going to the river of fire, which is actually the river of Jannah instead. So the tricks of Dajjal, what we should be doing, actually I forgot to mention, we should be reading the first ruku' of Surah Kahf and the last ruku' of Surah Kahf every Friday to be saved from the fitna, the trials of Dajjal. Forgive me for not mentioning that. If you go to someone's house, how do you inquire if their food is dhabiha halal without hurting their feelings? So this is a very tricky question, and I don't get more popular by this, but I don't really care about popularity. You the issue with zabiha halal, not the issue with zabiha halal, but the issue with people who don't eat zabiha halal. Many people are offended if people don't consume their food, and that's natural, right? When Ibrahim a.s. slaughtered some food, and the angels didn't eat from his food, right? He was shocked, right? He was startled by it. But obviously they were angels, they don't need to eat. So if we don't eat from people's food, or people don't eat from our food, we get offended, right? The issue nowadays with the dhabiha market, because it was asked, the hand-slaughtered market, is that the food that enters our houses, we didn't trick anybody. We actually went to the market looking for hand-slaughtered food, hand-slaughtered meat. That's why we're paying triple, right? And people who buy meat that's claimed to be halal, but is not really up to halal standards, they're actually being tricked. So there's fraud in the process, right? When the animal reaches a slaughterhouse, at that point in time, there should be a Muslim slaughter person who's with a sharp knife, slaughters, says Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and cuts at least 3 out of the 4 pipes, right? The 2 jugular, the trachea, and the esophagus, right? Cuts them, and then the death of the animal should be from that injury, not from a bullet or something else, and so on and so forth, right? And what happens is, a lot of times, the meat that's slaughtered in the slaughterhouse passes through a distributor, passes through I forget the names. It gets a processor or distributor, processor, and then it might end up in a butcher's place or a redistributor, and then it might even end up in a restaurant, right? So now it passes through 4 stages of obscurity. 4 stages of obscurity where we don't know where it's been altered. Does that make sense? To the point that there were people who would get hand-slaughtered zabiha food, chicken from one location. I go to him, buy like 4 boxes, right? And I'm buying it at premium, right? At the price that it costs to produce it, that quality. And then I'll get like 100 boxes that are not up to par. And then basically, I'll just mix them. Most people who enter the store don't know how to tell the difference. So they feel like it's not their fault. And for the most part, it's really not their fault. They tried, for the ones who are honest. And then when it makes it to the houses, people don't eat when they worked hard. They work in a halal industry. They tried to do halal. They paid extra, and now it's not halal. Is that what you're accusing me of? So that's the aspect of the offense, right? Of why they feel offended. But the truth be told is, our food entering our body, our du'as are based on that as well, right? There are people who will make du'a. Oh Allah, help us in this situation. But their clothing is haram, their earning is haram, and their food is haram. فَأَنَّا يُسْتَجَابُ لَهُ. How will the du'as be answered? So now I'm wondering, and it's very selfish what I'm about to say. Do I care about my Jannah more or your self-esteem? So it's a very tricky question. And the actual answer is, everybody should take the time to find out what's going on. That's the root of the problem. Just like when people ask me about these questions about how Imam Mahdi will be, so on and so forth, and I say like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but we might not necessarily know how he was. The other problem we suffer from is instant gratification in no time. We need the answer immediately. I need a soundbite. What's the answer for this zabiha problem? It's not a soundbite. You need to take the time out to find out what the process is. How does meat enter our homes? At what stages does it get received? And there's something called the USDA in America, where people already know that you have to keep some kind of standard. I've been to some slaughterhouses. If, for example, there's some intestines that weren't cleaned right away, then that area of the meat must be chucked. What happened to profit loss? The USDA doesn't care. You have to keep it sanitary. And Muslims are forced to keep that standard. But when it comes to the standard of Jannah, the standard of Ibrahim a.s., why are we so lackadaisical? Why are we lax on that? So, and the answer there is actually, let me give you the flip side of the coin. Most of us are working like day and night, right? Metaphorically speaking. We work so hard. Where do we have the time to follow up? But that's a catch-22. Because we don't follow up, we're suffering. So my dear respect, brothers and elders, people who actually control the finances in the house, actually go shopping, make an effort. At minimum, make an effort to find out what is dhabiha. You can call Sharia board. I discovered this. I found scholars that didn't know this process. Because there's so much that happens, it exchanges hands. So what you want is something that's certified from the slaughterhouse and then certified at every level until it reaches our plate. Do you follow? And non-Muslims value that. Right? There are some hipsters who will buy dhabiha meat. I've been to some places that serve exclusively dhabiha meat, and hipsters, not to knock hipsters, right? You know, may Allah guide all of us, ameen, Allahumma ameen. But they love it, and they keep them in business. They're paying premium. You try this steak, it's halal and tayyib, and they love it. So there is an economy for it. But why are we joining that economy? We're trying to save a buck here and a buck there, and at the cost of what? When Imam Mahdi only comes, or Dajjal comes, our du'as are not being accepted. How do Ya Allah help us find Imam Mahdi? Simple dua. If our food is halal, we'll find him. Right? If our clothing is halal, we'll find him. If our earning is halal, we'll find him. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us. And again, we're all transitioning. Alright? We're not trying to beat each other down. We're all trying. Does that make sense? So we're all at different stages. Somebody who's good at the earning level might not be good at the clothing level. Somebody good at the clothing level might not be good at the food level. But we're here to help each other, lift each other up. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You guys are amazing. Jazakallah.
Turn off, right?
Yeah.